They massacred his people in an alley nobody cared about. He came back, crawled out of hell with a burning skull and a chain that never misses, then spent the rest of his life hunting every soft-ass system that throws the weak away. Built a clan from numbers and orphans, dragged gods into the Netherrealm, and made the strongest men alive beg. Absolute menace.
The roof came down on Granny Katie's back, and she kept crawling anyway. She was 81 years old. She had one good hand, 3 teeth, and a kettle she had carried through 2 wars, and she was dragging herself across a floor of burning straw toward a doorway because a 7-year-old boy was somewhere out there in the alley, and she wanted to reach him before the fire did. Her fingers left 4 lines in the ash. Then a beam broke over her spine, and the line stopped. The alley they lived in had a name that appeared on 0 maps. The village called it the Ditch. It sat at the bottom of Konoha, where the runoff went, where the walls of the finer districts turned their blank backs, where the lamplighters skipped their rounds because oil cost money and the people down there didn't. 41 souls lived in the ditch that night. Beggars, cripples, orphans, a blind man, a woman who had lost her sons at the Kanabi Bridge and her mind sometime after, a boy with whisker marks on his cheeks who had been told by every shopkeeper in Konoha that his coin was the wrong shape. 40 of them were dying while the 41st ran home with 3 fish and a bag of rice he had traded for 2 hours of hauling crates. Naruto Uzumaki came around the corner at a dead sprint with the fish still cold against his ribs and stopped so hard his sandals tore skin off his heels. The ditch was a column of fire 200 feet high. He dropped the rice. He remembered dropping it later, remembered the small, dull sound of it, and he would hear that sound in his sleep for the rest of both his lives. He went in. Nobody stopped him because nobody was left standing to try. He found Genzo first. Genzo had been a stonemason before a scaffold took his left leg, and he had spent the last 11 months teaching Naruto how to read the grain of a rock before you struck it, how to breathe out on the hammer blow, how to sit still. Genzo was propped against the well with his crutch across his lap and his throat opened in a single clean line, and his crutch was broken in the middle, which meant he had swung it at somebody first. Naruto put his hand on the old man's shoulder and found it already cooling. He found Tobei, the blind beggar who could name a man by the sound of his walk, face down in the gutter with 3 shuriken in his back, and his hand still stretched out toward the crooked little shrine where the children slept. He found the children. That is where the story of the ditch stops being a story about a village ignoring a boy and becomes something else entirely, because Ame was 5 years old. Ame had never spoken a word in her life. She drew instead. She drew on walls with chalk stolen from the academy's rubbish heap, and every picture she had ever drawn had the same figure in it. A tall stick figure with yellow hair standing between the other stick figures and whatever was coming. She had drawn one that afternoon. Naruto found it under her hand, half burned, the yellow chalk hair still bright. He carried her out. He was 7 and she was 5, and he carried her out and laid her in the street and went back in for the next one and the next, and he had gotten to 4 when the man in the crow mask stepped out of the smoke behind him. Root Ambu wear gray. Their masks have 3 eyes and never any color. They come in squads of 6, and they file no reports that a Hokage may read. And the order that sent them into the ditch that night had been given 11 hours earlier in a room with 1 lamp in it, by an old man with bandages over half his face who considered the matter and found it simple. An unsanctioned gathering had formed around the Nine-Tails vessel. 41 civilians, unregistered, unmonitored, giving loyalty and shelter to a weapon that belonged to the village. Loyalty was a resource. Danzo Shimura did not permit resources to accumulate in hands he had never counted. Sterilize the site, he had told the Crow Mask captain. Retrieve the asset. If the asset resists, the Nine-Tails will heal what you break. Do whatever shortens the argument. The captain had bowed and gone, and 11 hours later he stood in an alley full of bodies and watched a child carry a dead 5-year-old into the street with his arms shaking. Asset, the captain said. You will come with us. Naruto turned around. There is a version of this night where the boy screams, where he throws himself at 6 trained killers with his fists and gets knocked flat and dragged away. That version would have been kinder. What happened instead is that Naruto Uzumaki looked at the crow mask with dry eyes and asked a single question in a voice that had gone flat and small and strange. "Did you kill her?" The captain drew. The blade went through Naruto's chest just under the collarbone, angled down, the way you are taught to do it when you want a heart and cannot afford a second try. It came out through his back. Naruto looked down at it. He had time to see his own blood run along the fuller of the sword and drip onto Aime's chalk drawing, and then the captain lifted him off the ground on the length of the steel, walked 4 steps, and threw him back into the burning house. "The 9 tails will reject a corpse," the captain told his squad. "Wait for the seal to break, then contain it, burn the rest." Naruto Uzumaki hit the floor of the only home he had ever had, and the fire closed over him, and he died. Falling is the wrong word for what came next, because falling requires a direction and there wasn't one. He went down through the floor of the world. Heat became a place. Rivers of stone ran orange in the black beneath him, and the wind that came up out of them was made of ash and screaming, layered screaming, 1,000 years of it, voices that had forgotten the words they were shouting. There was no bottom. He understood that with a child's terrible clarity. He had fallen off the edge of everything, and the edge went on forever, and the only thing that had ever loved him was gone, and he was going to fall like this until he stopped being anything at all. He didn't cry. He would think about that later too. He had run out of crying somewhere around Aang. Then the black in front of him folded, and something looked at him. It was old. That was the first thing he felt, an age that made the Hokage monument feel like fresh-cut timber. It was tired the way mountains are tired, and under the age and the tiredness, it was still burning, and the burning had a shape, and the shape was a purpose that had never once put itself down. "They took your clan, child." The voice came from every direction, from inside his own ribs, from the magma, from the ash. They took everything. Naruto hung in nothing and looked up. "Will you burn away into nothing?" the voice asked. "Or will you become the fire?" And the boy from the ditch, who had been refused service at 46 shops, who had been spat on by a woman selling flowers, who had been given a name by 40 people the village had thrown away, and had watched all 40 of them die in 1 hour, gave the answer that split his life in half. "Give me the fire." The abyss came apart. What poured into him was memory, and the memory belonged to a man named Hanzo Hasashi. He saw a compound in a mountain valley with yellow banners snapping in a cold wind. He saw 200 men and women in yellow and black bowing in rows on packed earth. He saw a wife with ink on her fingers and a son who was 5 years old and could already hold a stance for an hour without shaking. He saw a hall of them, and then he saw the hall on fire. He saw the Shirai Ryu die in a single night, betrayed by a pale sorcerer's lie and a rival clan's blade. And he saw Hanzo Hasashi kneel in his own family's ashes and be dragged down into a pit where the fire never goes out. And he felt what a man becomes after 400 years of that. He felt the vengeance harden. He felt it cool and set and become a code, because vengeance with no code is only appetite, and Hanzo Hasashi had refused to become an appetite. 2 griefs met in the black and recognized each other. They fit like a key going home. "Then take my name with the fire," the old Grandmaster said, "and take the law that comes with it. You will strike those who have abandoned honor, and you will spare those who never had a chance to keep it. You will never beg, you will never kneel. And when the fire has finished its work, you will build again." "I'll build again," Naruto said. "Rise, Grandmaster." Above the world, in an alley called the Ditch, the burning house exhaled. The crow-masked captain had been counting seconds, waiting for the seal to fail and the chakra spike to come. And what came instead was a pressure change. The flames in the doorway bent inward. Every fire in the alley leaned the same direction, toward the collapsed front room, as if something in there had started breathing. Then the fires went out. All of them at once, 40 houses worth, snuffed like a hand over a candle, and the alley dropped into a blackness so total that 6 Ambu operatives lost their footing in it. One light remained. It hung in the ruined doorway at the height of a child's head, and it was gold, and it was shaped like a skull. Naruto walked out of the house. The flesh had gone from his face. Above the collar of a burned orange shirt, there was a bare skull wrapped in yellow flame, and the fire was wrong. It moved wrong. It curled up and back like it hated the air, and the air 20 feet away from him wrinkled from the heat like water over a stone. His eyes were two furnace mouths in the bone, and coiled down his right forearm, rattling with every step, was a chain. Nobody had thrown it to him. It had come out of nowhere, link by link, out of the ether, the way a memory comes back. An old thing, a Shiryu thing, a length of black iron ending in a kunai that had been forged in a country that had never existed on any map of the elemental nations. The captain's squad had 1 full second to react. Root operatives are trained to feel zero fear, and to be fair to them, they did what they were trained to do. 2 flanked. 2 dropped into the earth. 1 went high with a wire trap. The captain drew and charged the center, because that is the correct answer when the center is a 7-year-old child. "Kunai chain," said a voice that had 2 throats in it. Naruto's arm snapped out. The chain crossed 40 feet of alley in a rattle that ended in a wet crack. The kunai went through the captain's mask, through the eye behind it, and out the back of his skull, and then Naruto's wrist twisted, and the man came off his feet and flew toward the boy who had pulled him. The flanker on the left got the captain's body in the chest at running speed. Both of them went down in the gutter. Naruto was already gone from where he had been standing. There was a burst of yellow fire, and a scorched black outline of a child burned into the mud, and that was all. Netherrealm step. He came out of the air behind the wire trap operative, 12 feet up. His palm closed on the back of the man's neck, and the hellfire went in through the skin. Understand what that means, because the men in the ditch didn't, and they had about 9 seconds left to learn. Ordinary fire eats the body. This fire went past the body. It found the chakra network, that river system of energy that every shinobi spends his life refining, and it ran up it like flame up a fuse, and behind the chakra network, it found the thing the chakra network is anchored to. Hellfire burns the soul. There is nothing in any village's archive that treats a burn on a soul, because until that night, nothing in the elemental nations had ever needed to. The operative did not scream with his mouth. He screamed with something further in, and it came out of him as a sound like a kettle, and when Naruto let go, what fell out of the sky was gray all the way through and light as a bundle of sticks. The 2 who had gone underground came up on either side of him with blades leading. Naruto caught the first wrist, pivoted under the arm, and drove a burning knee up into the man's ribs hard enough to lift him. The chain came around in the same motion and took the second man across the jaw, and Naruto walked forward into him, hooking the chain around his throat and turning his hips, and the operative went into the well head first with the whole length of iron singing after him. He turned to the last one, the flanker on the right, who had stopped running. Root operatives are conditioned out of their names. They are given numbers. They are taught that the self is an inefficiency. This one, standing in an alley of 40 corpses in front of a burning child, discovered that the conditioning had a floor, and he had found it. He ran. "The Netherrealm has no patience for cowards," Naruto said. The chain went out. It hit the man between the shoulder blades, and the boy pulled, and behind Naruto, the air opened. There is no good way to describe a Netherrealm portal to somebody who has never stood next to one. So here is what the 2 Konoha Patrol Chunin at the top of the ditch stairs reported, before their statements were removed from the record by an office that officially doesn't exist. They said the air tore. They said it tore vertically, about 8 feet, and that inside the tear was fire arranged in a way that fire should never be arranged. In shapes, in ranks, like a crowd. They said they heard a great many voices become interested at once. They said the man in gray went in feet first with a chain around him, and the tear closed, and the noise stopped, and one of them sat down on the stairs and stayed there until morning. Then the fire in the alley went out for the second time. The gold left the skull. Flesh crawled back over bone the way frost retreats off glass in the sun, and it was a boy again, 7 years old, standing barefoot in a street full of everyone he had. He walked back to Am. He picked up the burned drawing with the yellow chalk hair. He knelt in his family's ashes for 4 hours, and the second hour is when the third Hokage arrived. Hiruzen Sarutobi had been Hokage across 3 wars. He had walked battlefields where the dead were counted in units of 100. He came down the ditch stairs with 2 ambu and a lantern, and he stopped at the bottom because the lantern showed him 41 bodies, 5 of them wearing gray, and a child with a hole in his shirt where a sword had gone through and clean skin underneath it. "Naruto," he said. They said, "Asset," Naruto answered. His voice did it. That is the part Hiruzen would remember when he was dying. The voice. It was flat and level and slow, and it belonged to somebody who had been carrying weight for decades. 7-year-olds do not have that gear. They can't reach it. "Naruto, look at me." The boy looked at him, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, god of shinobi, felt his skin go tight. 40 of them, Naruto said. They fed me, when the shops wouldn't. Kade boiled water and put in whatever the market threw out and called it soup and gave me the first bowl every single time. Every time, old man. He set the chalk drawing on Ami's chest. They took my name because it was the only real one in the alley. 40 people. They called themselves Uzumaki. Hiruzen's hands closed on his own robe. "I will find who ordered this," he said. "I swear it on the seat I hold." "You already know who ordered it." The old man's mouth moved and nothing came out of it, and that silence lasted 11 seconds, and both of them heard everything inside it. "I have no proof," Hiruzen said at last, and his voice cracked down the middle. "He has a squad in every district and a friend in every office, and if I move on him without proof, this village tears itself apart with an enemy at every border. Do you understand what I am telling you? I am telling you that I am the most powerful man in this village, and I cannot reach him." "Not yet." Naruto stood up. "Then I'll reach him. You are 7 years old. I'm older than that now." He turned toward the stairs, and the ambu on the left flinched at the sound of iron links shifting somewhere under the boy's sleeve, where there had been nothing a moment before. "I'll take the academy seat you keep offering me. I'll wear your headband. I'll take your missions. And when I am ready, I will go down into the roots of this village, and I will burn them out, and you will not be able to stop me, and I don't think you will want to." "Naruto, bury them properly." He was 6 steps up. Names on the stones, all 40. They were a clan. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood in the ditch until sunrise. He had the stones carved, 41 names, because he added one at the bottom in a fit of grief he never explained. Uzumaki Naruto, who lived here. He also canceled 2 route budgets, transferred 4 officers, and slept about 9 hours total across the following month. And in a room with 1 lamp, a bandaged old man was informed that his squad had failed to report, that no bodies of value had been recovered, and that the third had been seen at the site. Danzo Shimura considered the matter and found it interesting. He filed it. He would take 5 more years to understand what he had filed, and by then, the pages would be on fire. Now, most stories about a boy who dies and comes back have him go loud. They have him shout about it. Naruto Uzumaki went the other way, and that is what made him frightening. He was silent for 5 years. He showed up to the academy at the correct hour and sat in the back row by the window, where the orange jumpsuit troublemaker of another life would have sat. Except this boy never once threw a chalk brush, never once painted a monument, never once raised his hand to ask a question he already knew the answer to. He wore black. He wore yellow trim on the sleeves because his hands did it without asking his permission, tying the same knots a dead grandmaster's hands had tied on a mountain in another world. He grew fast and quiet, and he held stances in the yard until his legs shook, and then until they stopped shaking. And after the second year, the older students stopped trying him. Iruka Umino, who had every reason to resent the 9 tails and had decided against it, watched the boy for 5 years and wrote in a report he never submitted. He does not behave like a child pretending to be an adult. He behaves like an adult being patient with a childhood. The other students found their own ways to deal with it. Shikamaru Nara took one look, filed him under problems I will never poke, and went back to sleep. Kiba Inuzuka tried him once in the sparring ring at age 9, got put on his back in under 2 seconds without a single strike thrown, and became his loudest defender out of pure animal respect. Sasuke Uchiha tried him at 10. Sasuke had been the top of the class since he had arrived, and he came at Naruto with the full Uchiha interception style and every scrap of a survivor's rage, and Naruto let him land 3 hits, then swept him, pinned his wrist, and said the only sentence he spoke in class that year. "Your brother did what he did. Grow strong enough to matter or stop talking about it." Sasuke did not speak to him for 8 months. He also began training 4 hours longer a day. Make of that what you will. Ino Yamanaka declared in the spring of their final year, in the middle of the girls' lunch table, that the scary one in the back with the shoulders was objectively the most terrifying man alive, and I would like it on record that I am fine with that. And Sakura Haruno told her to keep her voice down, and Hinata Hyuga said nothing at all and turned the exact color of a plum. Because Hinata watched him too. She watched him with the Byakugan once. Only once. She was 11 and curious, and she activated it across the yard for 2 seconds. And what she saw made her deactivate it so fast, she gave herself a nosebleed. Chakra networks look like rivers of light. His looked like a foundry. There were channels of ordinary blue, and under them a set system in yellow that ran the wrong way, and under that something with a shape she had no words for, coiled up in his gut behind a seal, and beneath even the fox there was a chain. She did not tell her father. She started leaving rice balls on the windowsill by the back row desk instead, wrapped in a cloth with a little flame stitched on it, and when he found the first one, he sat very still for a long time before he ate it. He never asked who left them. He knew after the first week. He just let her keep her secret because she seemed to need it, and a man who has lost everyone learns to be gentle with the shy ones. The fox, meanwhile, was having a miserable decade. Their first meeting had been a disaster from Kurama's perspective. Naruto was 8, and he walked down into the sewer of his own mind, and the nine-tailed fox spent an impressive amount of effort on the presentation. The flooded corridors, the enormous gate, the eyes like red suns, the wall of killing intent that had once folded an army. Naruto had walked up to the bars, looked in, and waited politely for the roaring to finish. "You feel no fear," the fox had said, which was as close as Kurama had ever come to a compliment. "I have been to hell," Naruto said. "It's louder." "You are a strange child. You'll get used to it. Do you want my power, boy? When I need it, I'll ask. Until then, keep your teeth off my soul, and I'll keep the fire off yours." He turned to go, then stopped. "Kurama." The gate went absolutely still. Naruto had used the name. Nobody had used the name in a very long time. "They put me in a box too," the boy said. "I'm going to get out of mine. I'll think about yours." And then he left, and the nine-tails sat in the water for 11 days without saying a word. And afterward, the two of them settled into the strangest arrangement any Jinchuriki ever managed. An old fox and an old ghost sharing a body, arguing about tactics like two veterans over a map, and never once fighting for control. Kurama's chakra made the hellfire hotter. The hellfire made Kurama's chakra able to burn things it had never burned before. They were, and I want to be clear about this, an absolute nightmare. Which brings us to the night of the graduation exam, and to a chunin named Mizuki. Mizuki had a plan, and the plan was old, and the plan was to use the village's least loved orphan as a set of hands. He came to Naruto that afternoon with a warm face and a soft voice and a story about a secret second test, and he explained where the forbidden scroll of sealing was kept, and he watched the boy's flat blue eyes and thought he saw a fish taking a hook. He got a nod. He did not get a fish. By the time Mizuki reached the clearing in the woods that night, the scroll was already lying open in the grass, and Naruto was sitting beside it with his back against a stump, and Iruka Umino was pinned to a tree 50 feet away with 3 kunai in his shoulder, because Mizuki's plan had a second half. "Hand me the scroll, Naruto," Mizuki called out. He was doing the voice again. "Iruka's been lying to you. You want to know why this whole village hates you? Ask him what's in your stomach." "The nine-tailed fox," Naruto said. Mizuki's grin locked up. "I've known since I was 8. We've spoken. He thinks you talk too much." Naruto rolled the scroll shut and stood up. "You had a headband and an oath and a village that fed you. You're selling it to a snake for a promotion." He came out from under the trees and moonlight found him, and something on his right forearm caught the light and moved. You betray your own blood for power. You have abandoned your honor. Kid, Mizuki said, I'm a chunin. You were. Mizuki did the thing men always did next. He unslung the giant windmill shuriken off his back, spun it up until it howled, and threw it back. And this is the moment where any student in the academy would have dived, and where Iruka started screaming Naruto's name. Naruto stood there. The shuriken reached him, and there was a whump of yellow fire, and the blade went through empty air and buried itself in a tree trunk. And where the boy had been standing there was a black scorch mark in the shape of a boy. Netherrealm step. He came up out of the ground behind Mizuki with his fist already burning. The uppercut caught the traitor under the jaw and lifted him 9 feet. Everybody in the elemental nations has seen a man get punched. Very few have seen a man get punched so hard that the impact makes a sound like a hammer on an anvil, then travel up in a straight line with fire coming off his teeth, hang for a half second at the top, and come down into the dirt hard enough to leave a crater 11 feet across, with cracks running out of it like a spider web. The windmill shuriken fell out of the tree. Nobody picked it up. Mizuki's jaw was in 4 pieces. His medical file later listed the injury as consistent with blunt trauma from a falling structure. He was awake for about 2 more seconds, and he spent them looking up at the boy standing on the lip of the crater. And Naruto looked down at him with an expression that had nothing personal in it at all, and that was worse. Your honor died before your body did, Naruto said. Then he walked over to the tree, pulled the kunai out of Iruka's shoulder one at a time, and pressed his palm flat over the wounds with a low flick of heat that sealed them shut. Iruka made a noise. Naruto took his teacher's arm over his shoulders and held him up. You, Naruto. Iruka's voice had gone to pieces. How did you? Later. There's fire coming off you. There usually is. 6 students had followed Mizuki out of curiosity and were standing in the tree line with their mouths open. Shikamaru Nara, who had come because Kiba dragged him, would tell this story at every reunion for the rest of his life, and he always started it the same way. So the sensei throws a windmill shuriken the size of a wagon wheel, right? And the guy doesn't move. Iruka gave Naruto his own headband on the walk back. Naruto tied it around his forehead. And then, in front of everyone, he pulled a black cloth up over his nose and mouth, and only his eyes showed above it. Why the mask? Iruka asked. Because when I take it off, Naruto said, people die. Team assignments happened 3 days later, and the village's assignment office had a hard week because whoever built these squads was clearly building around one problem. Team 8 went to Kurenai Yuhi, Kiba Inuzuka, Ino Yamanaka, Shino Aburame, tracking and mind work, an odd fit that turned out to be excellent. Team 10 went to Asuma Sarutobi, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, Hinata Hyuga, and Hinata cried a little in the bathroom afterward for reasons she told nobody. And Team 7 went to Kakashi Take, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. Hiruzen had done that on purpose. He put the copy ninja on the boy because Kakashi was the only jonin in the village he trusted to look at Naruto for a year and report honestly on what he was looking at. Kakashi was 3 hours late to the first meeting, which was standard. He arrived on the classroom windowsill with a book in his hand and one eye crinkled shut, and he made his little joke about hating them, and he took them up to the training field for the bell test. 2 bells, 3 of you, he said. Whoever fails goes back to the academy. Come at me with intent to kill or you won't touch me. The clock started. Sakura went for the trees. Sasuke went for the trees. Naruto stayed exactly where he was, standing in the open grass 20 yards from a jonin, arms loose, and Kakashi's first thought was, an idiot. And his second thought, arriving with a chill, was he's reading the field, because the boy's eyes were moving. Left to the tree line where the wind was wrong, right to the flat spot in the dirt where the earth had been turned, down to the loop of wire under the grass 3 feet from his own foot, up to the branch above Kakashi's head that would be the fallback. He mapped the entire trap layout in about 4 seconds without moving his feet, and Kakashi, who set that layout personally, watched a 12-year-old dismantle 2 hours of work with a pair of eyes. Then the boy's arm came up. And there was a sound Kakashi had never heard in 20 years of war, a rattle of heavy iron links running out of a sleeve that had no room for them. Kunai chain. Get over here! The shout came out of a child's chest in a voice that was two voices. It was ancient. It rolled across the training field and hit the tree line and came back, and Sakura Haruno, crouched in a bush 30 feet away, put both hands over her mouth. It was the first time anybody in Konoha had heard something that old come out of somebody that young. And there are people who lived through that morning who still can't hear the phrase without their arms going cold. Kakashi Hatake had time to lift his headband. He did not have time for anything else. The chain crossed the field in a blur, banked around his ankle with a whip crack, cinched and pulled. And here is the part that recalibrated the copy ninja's entire understanding of his own career. He weighed 170 pounds, and he was braced, and he came off the ground anyway, backward, feet first, faster than he had ever moved under his own power. The world went sideways. Trees became lines. The boy pivoted into the pull. His leg came around wreathed in yellow fire. The roundhouse landed on Kakashi's ribs with the sound of a door being kicked in, and Konoha's copy ninja skipped across his own training field like a stone across a pond, twice, and came to a stop against the base of the memorial post in a cloud of dust and torn grass. Silence hung over the field. The dust drifted. Kakashi sat up slowly, one hand on his side, his Sharingan spinning, his visible eyes stretched wide in a way it had not gone since a bridge in the land of grass 20 years before. His flak jacket had a boot print scorched into it. It smelled like a house fire. The chain rattled once as Naruto coiled it back up his arm. "Sensei," Naruto said, "your right side drops when you read." "Does it?" Kakashi said faintly. In the bushes, Sakura had stopped breathing. Sasuke Uchiha had come 3 steps out of cover without noticing, and his fists were shaking. And it wasn't from fear. It was from the sheer offense of watching somebody do that. And somewhere in the back of his head, an ambition he'd carried since he was 7 quietly changed shape. Kakashi got up. He put his headband back down over the Sharingan and dusted his hands off, and he took the 2 bells off his belt and dropped them in the grass. "Take them." "I only need one," Naruto said. He looked at the trees. "Sasuke, Sakura, come out." He was testing teamwork. "I broke the test. You both pass anyway." "That is not how," Kakashi started. "You'd rather explain to the Hokage that you failed the Jinchuriki, the last Uchiha and the top kunoichi of the year," Naruto said, "on your first day." There was a long pause. "You know what? Teamwork," Kakashi said. "Congratulations. All of you pass. I need to sit down." That night, Kakashi Hatake filed a report to the 3rd Hokage that ran 9 pages and ended with 2 sentences he wrote 3 times before he was satisfied. "He is not a genin. He is something that agreed to be a genin. And I would like to know why." Hiruzen read it, poured himself a drink, and went to bed early. Team 7's first real mission came out of a sealed envelope, which is how you know somebody upstairs had decided to see what the boy could do. A man named Lord Hosaku had spent 11 years as an accountant to the ruling family of the land of Tea, and had walked out of his office with 4 ledgers under his coat. Those ledgers named a great many people who had been taking money from a great many places, and 2 separate parties had put out contracts on him inside a single week. He wanted to reach the capital of Fire Country and testify. He needed to cross 200 miles of open road to do it. Kakashi took the scroll, looked at the client list, and said, "This is a B rank at minimum." "Then it's a B rank," Hiruzen said. "Take it." They took it. Hosaku was a soft, sweating man of about 50 who talked constantly for the first 2 days out of pure terror, and Sakura, to her credit, was kind to him about it. Sasuke walked point. Kakashi read his book and watched everything. Naruto walked at the rear with his hood up and said perhaps 11 words in 48 hours. And Hosaku found that far more comforting than anything the others told him. They were ambushed on the 3rd morning on a coastal road where the cliff dropped away on the left and there was nowhere to go but forward. The first thing that happened was that the air smelled like a lightning storm on a clear day. The second thing that happened was that Sasuke Uchiha, moving to cover the client, got hit by something he never saw and went 20 feet backward into a rock face with his whole right arm gone numb and his hair standing on end. Sasuke! Sakura got 2 steps before the ground under her lit up blue. Every muscle in her body locked, and she went down on her knees with her jaw clenched shut and her fingers curled, unable to make a sound. A man walked out of the rocks, and he was laughing. Aoi Rokusho had a Konoha headband tied crooked on his arm, which was a joke he enjoyed making, and a hunting license from the Hidden Rain, and in his right hand was a hilt with a blade of pure crackling lightning growing out of it, 6 feet long, hissing and throwing sparks onto the road. The sword of the Thunder God, Raijin, a second Hokage relic, stolen out of the Leaf's own vault, and a weapon that cut through steel, stone, chakra armor, and on 11 documented occasions, people who had thought they were fast. Konoha sends children, Aoi said. How embarrassing for everybody. Hand me the fat man and I'll only kill 2 of you. Kakashi's headband was already up. He read the blade in a glance and did the math and knew, with the cold honesty of a professional, that he was going to lose somebody in the next 30 seconds. Then Naruto Uzumaki walked past him. He didn't hurry. He walked up the middle of the road with his hands at his sides, past Sakura, past the rock where Sasuke was trying to make his arm work, and his eyes had gone from blue to gold, and the rattle started. A slow, heavy rattle, iron on iron, 1 link at a time with every step. Aoi's grin stayed on his face and stopped meaning anything. Kid, he said, do you know what this is? A borrowed sword. This is Raijin. This is the lightning of the second Hokage. Naruto stopped 15 feet away. Lightning is fleeting, he said. Hellfire is eternal. Aoi came at him full speed and swung for his neck. Naruto's arm snapped up and the chain came out and caught the blade. Everybody on that road had a different idea of what was going to happen. Kakashi expected the chain to be cut in half. Aoi expected the chain and the arm and the boy. What happened instead is that the black iron links wrapped around a bar of pure lightning and held, and then the yellow fire came up the chain from Naruto's shoulder, flowed up it, link by link the way water runs down a gutter, and hit the sword. Raijin screamed. Lightning went white, then gold, then wrong. The hissing turned into a shriek. The hilt in Aoi Rokusho's palm went from cool metal to a temperature that has no business existing on a coastal road in the land of fire, and the alloy softened, and it fused to the meat of his hand. He screamed louder than the sword did. He tried to let go and discovered that letting go was no longer available. He hammered the hilt against the rock face and took the skin of his palm off with it, and the metal came away with the skin. Naruto flicked the chain loose. There was a burst of yellow flame and a scorched outline of a boy on the road. He came out of the air behind Aoi Rokusho and took him by the collar. To hell with you! The air tore. Kakashi Hatake had 31 confirmed S-rank encounters on his record, and he had never seen anything like the thing that opened up on that road. It was a vertical wound in the world about 8 feet tall. Inside it, there was fire, and the fire had architecture, towers of it, arches, a horizon that went back farther than the width of the tier allowed. And there were shapes moving in it, a great many shapes, and every single one of them turned to face the opening at the same time. Naruto stepped in, dragging Aoi with him by the collar, and the tiers sealed shut behind them. 5 seconds. That is the length of it. Sakura, still paralyzed on her knees, counted, because counting was the only thing she could do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The air tore again, and Naruto stepped out onto the road with his back straight and his hand releasing a collar, and Aoi Rokusho hit the dirt. He was breathing. His eyes were open. He was 34 years old and in perfect physical condition, apart from a ruined right hand, and there was nobody home behind his face. His pupils had gone to pinpricks. His mouth was slack, and a thin line of drool ran down into the road dust. He never spoke again. Whatever he saw in those 5 seconds, and he was in there for 5 seconds, and the medics who examined him later noted the muscle atrophy of a man who had lain still for months. It had gone in through his eyes and taken everything out of him with it and left the shell sitting up. The sword of the Thunder God lay in the road, a warped stick of slag with a man's skin welded to it. The paralysis field died with its caster. Sakura fell forward onto her hands. Sasuke got up off the rock with his right arm hanging and said absolutely nothing, which for Sasuke Uchiha was a paragraph. Lord Hosaku stood in the middle of the road holding 4 ledgers to his chest, and he stared at the boy in black and yellow, and the silence went on and on. It got long enough that Kakashi looked over at him. The man's lips were moving with nothing coming out. Then he sat down in the road, very slowly, like a man lowering himself into cold water, and he said one thing: "I'll testify. I'll testify to everything. Please don't let him look at me again." He testified. 11 noble houses came apart over those ledgers. Lord Hosaku lived to be 79, and he kept a shrine in his house with a scrap of black cloth in it, and he never told his grandchildren what it was for. On the road back, Sakura Haruno walked beside Naruto for 8 miles working up to it, and finally got it out. "What's in there? Where you took him?" Naruto walked a while before answering. "The place they put you when your soul has a debt," he said. "It's where I grew up." "You grew up in Konoha." "I grew up in a fire in Konoha." He glanced at her. "You held your ground when your legs stopped working. That was honorable. Remember that you did it." Sakura Haruno, who had spent 13 years being told she was clever and never once being told she was brave, walked the rest of the way home in a completely different body. Kakashi's second report was 2 pages. "I no longer believe I am the strongest member of Team 7. I request permission to stop pretending." Hiruzen wrote back one line: "Denied. Keep pretending. It comforts the elders. The Chunin exams came that summer, and the exams are where the rest of the world found out. 26 villages sent squads. The first stage was a written paper designed to make children cheat, and Naruto answered it honestly and finished 11th in the hall, which annoyed several people. Ibiki Morino, watching from the front, marked the boy's card and wrote stable under pressure. 0 tells, and then, after the 10th question, added did not react to the threat at all. Recommend caution. The second stage was the Forest of Death. 5 days, 2 scrolls, 39 squads going in, and 11 expected to come out. Team 7 cleared their scroll in 90 minutes. Naruto took a Kusa squad apart at the gate before Sasuke had finished drawing a weapon, and then he said they were staying in the forest anyway. And when Sakura asked why, he said, "Because somebody in here is hunting the children, and I want to meet him." He met 2. The first found them on the second night. Sakura was banking the fire when the sand came. It came under the tree line in a low hissing sheet, and it came fast, and it went for her. Up her legs, up her waist, closing like a fist, and the pressure started before anybody could shout her name. Gaara of the Sand stood between 2 trees with one hand raised and his eyes wide open. He was 12 years old, and he had killed 11 people that year. He heard a voice in his head that told him blood was the only thing that made him real, and he had come into the forest to hear that voice go quiet for a while. He had the perfect defense: sand that answered before he thought, sand that no blade had ever reached through. He raised his hand to close the sand coffin, and the last thought he had before everything went wrong was that the girl smelled frightened. Then a hand closed around his wrist. Nobody had seen the boy cross the clearing. Kankuro, 40 feet up a tree, would swear for years that Naruto Uzumaki teleported, and Kankuro was right. The sand reacted instantly, the way it always did. It came off Sakura in a wave and flooded up Naruto's arm, a ton of it, a river of it, wrapping his forearm, his elbow, his shoulder, climbing to bury him. Naruto ignited. The hellfire came out of him in a single pulse, and the temperature it reached does not have a number attached to it in any record, because the only instrument present was a boy's skin. Here is what the clearing heard. The hissing of 1,000 pounds of moving sand stopped dead, and in its place came a crackle, a high, spreading, glittering crackle, like a frozen lake breaking, like 10,000 tiny things all failing at once. And it went on for a full second, and no one in that clearing breathed through any of it. The sand had turned to glass, not sandy, half-melted lumps. Actual glass. The whole flowing sleeve of it around Naruto's arm went orange, then clear, then set. And the shape it set in was the shape of a wave in mid-crash, frozen, glowing red at the seams, running all the way back down the clearing in a twisted rope of glass to the gourd on Gaara's back and past the wrist Naruto was still holding. Gaara's ultimate defense was crumbling in his own hand, and it was falling off him in pieces that tinkled when they hit the ground. His eyes went wide, wider. He made a small sound, and it was the sound a child makes, and Tamari heard it from her branch and felt her stomach drop out, because her brother did not make sounds like that. Her brother made other people make sounds like that. Naruto pulled him in until their faces were a foot apart. His eyes were gold. The air between them wrinkled from the heat. "You are a slave to a false beast," he said. "I conquered my demons long ago. Control your bloodlust, or I will end you." And then, and this is the part that made it into the Sans own records under a heading that translates roughly as the incident we do not discuss, he let go. Gaara stood there with a sleeve of glass falling off his arm. The voice in his head, the one that had never once shut up in 12 years, the one that had told him from the crib that he was a thing that existed to kill, that voice had gone silent, not soothed, terrified. Shukaku, the one-tail, had smelled the fire and pulled all the way back to the bottom of the boy's mind and was refusing to come out. For the first time since he was 6 years old, Gaara of the desert was alone in his own skull. He turned around and walked into the trees without a word. Kankuro dropped down after him, looking back over his shoulder the whole way, and Tamari came last and stopped at the edge of the clearing and stared at Naruto with her fan half drawn and her hand shaking on the grip. "What are you?" she said. "Late," Naruto said. He was already looking east. "There's something worse in here." There was. It came the next morning out of a wind that flattened trees for 200 yards, and it came riding on a serpent the size of a river barge. Sasuke saw the summon first and shouted, and then the pressure hit. A killing intent so heavy that Sakura's knees folded, and Sasuke Uchiha, who had lived through his own clan's massacre, stabbed himself in the thigh with a kunai to break out of the vision it put in his head. The grass nin standing on the serpent's brow had a long tongue and a face that fit wrong, like a mask made from the wrong measurements. My, Orochimaru said. "The last Uchiha! What a beautiful thing to find under a rock." His tongue came out and tasted the air. And the Nine Tails cage. 2 prizes. "Kukuku, how do you children want to be opened?" "I have so many methods." "Sasuke," Naruto said. "Sakura, behind me, 40 feet. "That's not going to," Sasuke started. "Now." They moved. Something in the voice made them move. Orochimaru's smile widened. "And the loud one wants to go first. Take him, my friend." The serpent launched. It came at 40 miles an hour with its mouth open wide enough to take a horse whole, and it closed 100 feet in the time a man takes to blink twice, and Naruto Uzumaki reached up and pulled down his mask. The flesh went off his face. That is the part that ended up in an S-rank bingo book with a hand-drawn illustration. Because Orochimaru of the Sannin, who had studied the human body for 40 years and had personally invented 11 ways to survive death, watched a 12-year-old boy's skin and muscle burn away from his skull in under a heartbeat, and had absolutely nothing in his catalog to put it next to. The bone underneath was clean and white and wrapped in yellow flame that curled backward off the crown. 2 furnaces sat in the eye sockets. The air for 30 feet around him distorted and the leaves on the ground curled up and browned. Naruto's jaw opened wide. Hellfire. What came out was a wall. I want to give you the scale honestly. The Forest of Death has trees 120 feet tall and 11 feet across at the base. The stream of fire that came out of that boy's mouth was 60 feet wide when it left him, and 140 feet wide when it reached the serpent, and it went on for 6 full seconds, and it took the tree line with it. The snake, a summon that had eaten 4 platoons in its career, came apart the way a paper lantern comes apart. Its scales went first. Then there was a shape inside the fire, thrashing, and then there was no shape, and by the time the roar stopped, there was a cone of scorched black earth, 400 feet long, carved out of the middle of the forest, with the stumps still standing in it like teeth, and a fine gray ash coming down over everything like snow. And Orochimaru, who had jumped clear at the first instant with reflexes honed over 4 decades, landed on a branch and put a hand to his own chest because something had gone wrong in there. The edge of the fire had brushed him. Only the edge. Half a yard of it across his left side, and his flesh was fine. His flesh was untouched, and there was a burn on the inside. Somewhere behind the ribs, behind the organs he had replaced twice, there was a hole with fire in it, and it was burning in a place he had no scalpel for. His whole body of work stood on one pillar: immortality. Shed the body, take another body, live forever. Every technique he had ever built assumed that the self was permanent and the vessel was disposable. Hellfire burns the soul. Orochimaru of the Sannin worked that out in about 1.5 seconds, standing on a branch in a burning forest, and the look that went across his face is the reason Kabuto found him shaking 2 hours later. "Ah," he said softly. That changes several plans." The skull turned toward him. "You harvest bodies," Naruto said, in 2 voices. "There is a place under this world with a room set aside for men like you. I have seen it. I have been in it." He raised his arm and the chain rattled down out of his sleeve. "Would you like to go now or later?" Orochimaru vanished so fast the breed been standing on was still bouncing after he was gone. He left the Uchiha untouched. He left the curse mark unmade. He went back to a base in Rice Country and spent 11 days doing nothing but trying and failing to reach the wound inside himself. And when Kabuto asked what the mission had produced, the snake Sannin said something that his aide wrote down word for word. "There is a boy in Konoha who can kill me permanently. Everything we do from now on accounts for that." The mask went back up. The flesh came back with it. Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha stood at the edge of a 400-foot burn scar in the Forest of Death, and neither of them could get a word out for a solid minute. "That was a Sannin," Sasuke finally said. His voice was strange. "That was one of the 3. "Yes, he ran? They usually do." Naruto shouldered his pack. "The tower's east. Let's go." Team 7 cleared the second stage on day 3 in first place, and the proctors had to open the forest's fire response for the first time in 19 years. The preliminaries came 2 days later in an arena under the tower, with Jonin Sensei on the balconies and village elders in the raised box, and the third Hokage sitting front and center with his hat in his lap. 30 candidates, 15 matches. They ran through them fast. Sasuke put down a sound nin in 90 seconds and got a nod from his brother's ghost for it. Ino and Kiba both advanced. Shino won without moving. Hinata Hyuga faced her cousin and lost on her feet, refusing to yield, which took 4 minutes and left the Hyuga elders in the box tight-lipped and pale. Then the board rolled again. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji came down to the floor because Neji had been waiting for this since the first day of the exam. He had heard about the forest. He had decided it was a rumor with the volume turned up. "So," he said, "Fate has an opinion about you too." "Fate has an opinion about everybody," Naruto said. "Mine argues back." The proctor called it, and Neji dropped into the gentle fist stance and switched on the Byakugan. He got exactly 1 look. The Byakugan is the most complete visual apparatus in the shinobi world. It sees the chakra network in full, 361 points, every vessel, every channel. Neji Hyuga had been trained since he could walk to read a human being the way other people read a page, and what he saw across that floor stopped his stance halfway. There was a chakra system. Then, threaded through it and around it and under it, there was a second system that was on fire. Then behind that, there was a vast red thing pressed up against a seal, which he had been briefed about and which he recognized, and which was not the problem. The problem was that behind the fox, further in, where a person should end, there was a chain, and the chain went down, out of the body, down through the arena floor, down past the foundations, down out of the world. And Neji's eyes followed it and kept following it and found no end at all. "What?" he said. "Are you?" "2 men, Naruto said. "One promise, come." Neji came. Whatever else you say about Hyuga pride, the boy came. He came in on the standard interception line and threw the first strike at Naruto's shoulder vessel with his fingers extended, and the fingers landed, and Neji felt the shoulder point close under his hand, and then he felt the heat come back up his arm. He tore free and staggered back with the sleeve of his shirt smoking and 2 of his own tenketsu screaming. 8 trigrams rotation. He spun up because that is the answer to everything. The dome of chakra expanded around him, a perfect sphere of spinning defense that deflects any physical attack from any angle. The technique the main house kept behind closed doors, Naruto walked into it. He put his bare hand into the spinning wall of chakra, and the fire went in with it. and the dome came apart like a soap bubble on a stove. The backlash threw Neji off his own feet. He landed and rolled and came up in the 64-palm stance because it was the only card left in the deck. 8 trigrams, 64 palms, 2 palms, Naruto said. Neji got in one. Naruto caught the striking wrist on the second, turned it over, and drove his other palm into the boy's chest. No fire in it, no chain, just the heel of a hand. And Neji Hyuga left the ground and traveled the entire length of the arena and hit the far wall 18 feet up and slid down it into a sitting position with his eyes rolled back. The proctor started counting and then stopped counting and just called it. Up in the raised box, 3 Hyuga elders were on their feet. Hiyashi Hyuga was gripping the rail with both hands. In the balconies, Might Guy had gone very still, and Kakashi was rubbing the back of his own neck with the expression of a man being proven right in public. Down on the floor by the wall, Hinata Hyuga had both hands pressed over her heart and was staring at Naruto's back with an expression that her father, glancing down, correctly identified, and then immediately chose to think about later. The elders in the box leaned toward each other and hissed. That was a main house technique broken with an open hand. That is the Nine Tails. That is not the Nine Tails, Hiruzen Sarutobi said without turning around. The Nine Tails is a tenant. Whatever paid for that was paid by the boy. Across the arena, on the sand side of the floor, Gaara of the desert stood with his arms folded and his sand still and watched Naruto Uzumaki climb the stairs. He had refused to fight in the preliminaries. He had walked to the floor when his name came up, looked at the boy on the balcony, and said, "Put me against him or I withdraw." The proctors, confused, put him in the bracket against him. Kankuro had asked why. "Because I want to know if I'm real," Gaara said, and he's the only one who won't lie about it. The finals were set for a month later. Naruto versus Gaara, top of the card. Every seat in Konoha Stadium sold in 4 days, and the betting houses refused to take action on that match at all. He trained through that month, and where he trained is worth telling. He trained in the Netherrealm. He would walk out to the burn scar in the woods where the ditch used to stand. The village had built a small stone garden there, 41 names, and somebody kept the weeds off it, and Naruto had never found out who, and he would open a tear in the air and step through it. On the other side, there was a plane of black glass under a sky the color of a coal bed, and there were things on that plane that had been waiting a very long time for company. He fought them. He fought 6 at a time, then 11, then whatever came. He learned to hold 2 ninja toe of pure hellfire, 1 in each hand, and to keep them lit for an hour. He learned to open a portal behind him while stepping through a portal in front of him and come out inside a man's guard. He learned the old kata of the Shirai Ryu from the inside of a dead grandmaster's memory, and by the end of the month his body moved the way that body had moved on a mountain in a world that had burned before he was born. Hanzo Hasashi spoke to him on the last night. It happened rarely, and always in the moment between sleeping and waking. "You are strong enough," the old voice said. That was never the question. The question is what you do the day after you kill the man who took your clan. "I'll build it again," Naruto said. "The Shirai Ryu, not the way it was, my way. Orphans, cripples, the ones the villages throw out. I'll take the ones nobody counted." "Then you understood the lesson, Grandmaster. I had good teachers." He was quiet a moment. "One of them boiled soup out of garbage." The finals began on a clear morning with 40,000 people in the stands and a Kazekage in the box beside the Hokage. They never got to the main event. Naruto knew the invasion was coming before the first Genjutsu feather fell, because a Jinchuriki can smell another Jinchuriki's fear, and Gaara had been shaking in the tunnel. He stood in the competitor's box and watched the Kazekage's shoulders and counted the sound ninja in the crowd. 12 in the west stands alone, all of them with the same posture, all of them watching the Hokage instead of the arena, and he stepped up onto the rail. "Naruto," Sakura said, "the match? Cover your ears in about 6 seconds." Then the feathers came down, and 40,000 people fell asleep, and the roof of the Kaji box exploded. Konoha's crush went differently in this world. Here is how. The sound and sand pincer worked as planned for about 11 minutes. Barriers went up around the roof. 3 enormous serpents broke through the northern wall. Sand Jonin poured through the breach into the residential districts and started burning what they could reach. Gaara, gone half transformed and howling, tore out into the forest with a squad of Konoha Genin chasing him. And Naruto Uzumaki went a different direction entirely, because he had felt something at the edge of the village that was smaller than a war and mattered more. He crossed 6 rooftops and came down in a training yard behind the eastern granary, and he found a woman on her knees in the grass. Yugao Uzuki had her Anbu mask pushed up on her forehead and her sword lying forgotten beside her. And she had Hayate Gecko's head in her lap. Hayate had been dead for perhaps 90 seconds. The wound was in his back, up under the shoulder blade and through, and it was a wind cut, and it had been delivered from behind while the man was reporting an enemy movement. His notebook was still open in the grass with his own handwriting in it. Yugao had promised to marry him in the autumn. That is the kind of detail that gets left out of the official accounts of an invasion, and it is the only detail that matters here. Standing over the two of them was a big man in a sand flak vest and a white headcloth, with a scar down one side of his face, and he was cleaning his hand on his sleeve. Baki, commander of the Sand's forward element, a Jonin with 11 years of command, who had watched a Konoha shinobi discover the invasion plan and had made the professional decision, and who was about to make the same decision about the woman crying in the grass. Regrettable, he said, and raised his hand. It is a war. Everyone at this yard was always going to. Turn around. Baki turned around. The boy standing at the edge of the yard reached up and pulled his mask down, and the flesh went off his face. And Baki of the Sand looked into 2 burning sockets in a bare skull and lost the thread of his own sentence. Naruto raised both hands and fire poured out of his palms and it lengthened into 2 blades, 2 ninjato, 3 feet each, yellow-white at the edge and howling low, and the grass under them went black in a wide circle. Hellfire blades. Baki was a professional. He did the correct thing. Wind blade. The technique was his life's work. A scythe of compressed air that could open a man from shoulder to hip through armor. He threw 3 of them in 2 seconds, cross-cutting, filling the entire yard with cuts, and every one of them was aimed to kill. Naruto stopped existing 3 times. There were 3 bursts of yellow fire and 3 after images standing in the yard, burning outlines of a boy in 3 different postures. And the wind blades went through all 3 of them and cut smoke and fire and reached the granary wall behind and opened it up in long white gashes and hit nothing else. Baki's hands were still up when a voice came from behind his right ear. Fire warms the flesh, Naruto said. Hellfire consumes the soul. Both blades went in under the ribs, angled up, one from each side. The commander of the Sand's forward element had time to look down at the 2 lines of light coming out of his own chest. And then Naruto Uzumaki opened his hands and the fire went out of the blades and into him. He lit up from the inside. It came out of his mouth first, then his eyes, then the seams of his vest, light in every direction, from a man who had turned into a lantern, and the sound he made was very short. Whatever it was that had made the decision to put a blade through a man's back at a bridge in the dark was found, and reached and burned out, and by the time the light stopped, there was very little standing in that yard, and none of it was Baki. Naruto let his hands drop. The grass smoked. He walked over to the woman in the grass and knelt down on one knee, and he lowered his head. His soul is avenged, he said. Mourn with honor. Yugao Uzuki looked up at him. She had been an Anbu captain for 6 years. She had seen every kind of terrible thing the profession offers. She was 26 years old, and the man she was going to marry in the autumn was cooling in her lap. And there was a 13-year-old boy kneeling in front of her with a burning skull for a face, and she did the only thing left in her. She started sobbing. Great, ugly, tearing sobs, the kind that come from the bottom. And she put one hand out and grabbed a fistful of the boy's sleeve and held on to it like a rail on a ship. And Naruto Uzumaki stayed exactly where he was and let her. He did not tell her it would be all right. He did not tell her Hayate had died well. He knelt in the grass with a woman's fist in his sleeve and gave her the 2 minutes. And when her breathing steadied, he reached up and closed Hayate Gecko's eyes with his thumb. Get him inside. he said. Then get your mask on. There are more of them in the village. Who are you? She whispered. The flesh came back over his skull. He pulled the mask up. Somebody's son, he said, and walked out of the yard. Yugao Uzuki carried Hayate to the shelter herself. Then she put her mask on and killed 11 sound ninja in the Eastern District over the following hour, and she never once for the rest of her life let anybody in her presence speak badly of Naruto Uzumaki. She would put her cup down and look at them, and they would stop. The rest of the invasion took 18 minutes, and here is where the world's opinion of Konoha changed permanently. The 3 serpents in the Northern District were the worst of it. They were the size of aqueducts, and they had already brought down 4 blocks. Konoha's Jonin were fighting them in a running battle up the main avenue and losing ground, and there were 300 civilians in the evacuation tunnel under that avenue. Naruto came in on the rooftops and stopped on a water tower and looked down at them. And Kurama, for the first time in 5 years, offered something. Boy, take it. All of it. Snake meat burns beautifully. Agreed. He dropped into the avenue between the serpents and the Jonin line and pulled his mask down, and the skull lit, and this time the fire that came up out of him had red in it. Anko Mitarashi, holding the left flank with a broken arm, would describe the next 4 seconds at 3 separate inquiry hearings, and each time she described it differently because there is no fixed way to say it. Hellfire, scorched earth. He didn't breathe it. He pushed it. Both palms went out, and a dome of fire expanded from him in every direction at once, and it went up the avenue and over the rooftops, and it climbed until you could see it from 3 villages away. The serpents were inside it. They had time to rear back. Then the summoning contracts holding them in this world burned through. The contract itself, the binding, the thing behind the ink, and all 3 of them came apart into ash at the same instant, and the ash went up in the column and out. The dome pulled back into him. Every building in that avenue was standing. Every civilian in the tunnel was alive. The paving stones had gone to glass in a perfect circle 100 yards wide, glowing dull orange, with a boy standing in the middle of it, and 30 Konoha Jonin on the far edge of it with their mouths open. The Sans field commanders surrendered inside of 6 minutes of that, not because they were ordered to, because the entire Northern Assault Force watched a 100-yard hole open in the sky over Konoha, and word travels. But there is a cost in this story too, and it comes here, and it hurt. Naruto reached the roof of the Hokage's tower 30 seconds too late. The purple barrier was still standing when he arrived. 4 Sounin at the corners holding a wall that even the 3rd Hokage's fire couldn't break. Naruto put his hand on it and burned through it in under 2 seconds because the barrier was made of chakra and his fire didn't care about chakra, and the 4 Sounin holding it died in the same 2 seconds, and the barrier collapsed inward like a tent. Inside it, Hiruzen Sarutobi was on his knees with his arms around a white shape, and Orochimaru was screaming. The old man had done it already. The Reaper death seal was closed. Orochimaru's arms hung off him like empty sleeves. Every technique in them sealed away forever, and he tore free of the dying grip and went over the roof edge and was gone into the smoke. And the last thing he did before he vanished was look at the boy standing in the broken barrier, and there was terror on his face. Naruto crossed to the old man and got him under the shoulders and eased him down. You, Hiruzen said. His lips were gray. You burned my barrier problem. I was late. You were fighting 3 summons in my northern district. The 3rd coughed, and there was a wet sound in it that both of them recognized. I saw the light. The whole village saw the light. His hand came up and closed weakly on the boy's forearm. Naruto, listen to me. I have been a coward about one thing my entire life. One thing. Naruto said nothing. I let him keep his roots. Hiruzen's eyes were wet. I told myself it was for stability. 41 graves in the ditch say otherwise. I have carried them for 6 years. His grip tightened. The seat will go to Jiraiya's student or to Tsunade if he can find her. Noyo, whoever sits in it, will inherit a village with a rot under the floor, and they will make the same excuses I made, because the excuses are very comfortable. They won't get the chance, Naruto said. The 3rd Hokage laughed. It hurt him to do it. He did it anyway. No, he agreed. I don't suppose they will. He looked at the boy's face for a long moment, and whatever he saw there, it seemed to settle something in him. I did wrong by you. I want to have said it out loud. You put 41 names on a stone when the council told you to put none, Naruto said. You had the weeds pulled every spring. I know it was you. The old man's face broke. They were a clan, Hiruzen whispered. They were, Naruto said, and Hiruzen Sarutobi died on the roof of his own tower with a boy's hand holding his, and the village bells started ringing under both of them. Naruto knelt on that roof for a long time. It was the second time he had knelt in the ashes of somebody who had chosen him, and he had learned by then that there is no way to make that shorter. Then he stood up, and he went to work. The funeral was held in the rain, which is traditional. 11,000 people came. Naruto stood at the back of it with his hood up, and when the line went past the portrait, he was the last one to lay a flower, and what he laid was a chalk drawing of a stick figure with yellow hair, and Iruka Umino saw him do it and had to leave. Tsunade Senju came home 11 days later. Jiraiya had gone out and found her in a gambling house in Tanzaku town, and the argument that brought her back took 3 days and involved a great deal of shouting and one destroyed bar. She arrived in the village with a bad temper, a hangover, and an assistant carrying a pig, and she took the hat because there was nobody else. And she read the after-action report of the crush on her first night in the office. She got to page 9 and stopped and read a paragraph 4 times and looked up at Jiraiya. What is hellfire scorched earth? That's the kid. This says he deleted 3 A-rank summons in one technique and didn't damage the buildings. That's the kid. This says Orochimaru fled the field with a soul injury. Also the kid. Tsunade Senju put the report down and rubbed both hands over her face. Bring him in. I want to look at him. Naruto came in the next morning and stood in front of the desk, and the two Sanin looked him over, and Tsunade found, to her considerable irritation, that she wanted to sit up straighter. You're 13, she said. I'm older than that. That's what your file says. Everybody's file says something clever. She tapped the desk. I'm told you don't take orders. I take requests, Naruto said. From people with honor. So far this village has produced 2, and one of them is in the ground. Jiraiya, standing by the window, made a noise like a man swallowing a laugh and a warning at the same time. You're rude, Tsunade said. I'm honest. The difference upsets people. She looked at him a while longer. Then she leaned back. Get out of my office. Do your job. And Uzumaki, if you ever aim that fire at this village, I will find a way to end you. If I ever aim it at this village, Naruto said, it will be because something in it earned it, and you'll know exactly which thing. He turned for the door. You should read the ditch file. The one with the seal on it. It's in the second cabinet, back of the drawer. Sarutobi kept it where he'd have to see it. The door shut. Tsunade Senju sat there for a full minute, then got up and opened the second cabinet and read a file about 41 civilians and 1 dead boy, and she was still holding it when the sun went down. The autumn was quiet. The village rebuilt. Naruto took missions and came back from all of them, and the missions he came back from had a pattern to them that the mission desk started noticing. Bandit camps with 0 survivors, rogue nin with intact bodies and empty faces, 1 slave caravan in the land of rivers, where 42 men in the trafficking crew were found in a circle of glass in the road, and 11 children were found sitting under a tree half a mile away with blankets and a full water skin, and a note in block capitals that read, "They will come for you in Konoha." Wait here. He put 4 of those children in the academy himself. He paid their fees out of his own mission pay. When the registrar asked him under whose family name to file them, he said 1 word, Uzumaki. Nobody argued. Hinata Hyuga found him on the training field behind the burn garden that November. She had been working up to it since the preliminaries, which meant 3 months of standing at various corners. You broke the rotation, she said. Yes. With 1 hand? Yes. Nobody has ever my clan built that technique to be. She stopped, gathered herself, and started over, and her voice steadied out. Neji has been different since. He asked our uncle a question at dinner about the seal, out loud, in front of the elders. Her fingers twisted in her sleeves. He would never have done that before. You cracked something. Naruto lowered his hands out of the kata and looked at her. "You lost your match," he said. Hinata went pale. "You lost it standing up and you refused to yield 4 times, and your father watched you do it." Naruto walked over and stopped in front of her. "You have honor. In this village that is rare, and in your house it is apparently a crime. Don't let them file it down." Hinata Hyuga looked up at him with her eyes enormous. "The rice balls," she said, "were mine. I know, you used too much salt. I'll fix it." "Don't." He pulled his mask up and turned back to the field. "It's the only thing I taste anymore." She stood on that training ground for a long time after he'd gone back to the kata, and then she walked home with her hands over her face, making a small squeaking noise, and Kiba Inuzuka, who happened to be passing, put it directly into the rumor mill, where Ino Yamanaka received it and did to it what she does. Winter came, and then Sasuke Uchiha left. The village found out at 3 in the morning. He went out over the north wall with 4 of Orochimaru's people, having refused a curse mark and accepted a promise instead, and he left a note on his table that said, "I can't grow here and nothing else." Tsunade convened everybody she had at dawn. What she had was thin because half the Jonin Corps was still out on reconstruction escorts. She had Shikamaru Nara, newly promoted to Chunin, and she had 5 Genin, and she had Naruto Uzumaki standing at the back of the room with his arms crossed. "Uzumaki." She looked up from the map. "You're the fastest thing in this village and you can be at the northern border in 20 minutes. Bring him home." "No." The room went still. "That was an order. You said you were told I don't take orders." Naruto pushed off the wall. "I've watched Sasuke Uchiha for 6 years. He didn't get taken. He wasn't tricked. He was offered a shortcut and he weighed his village against it and he chose. That's a man's choice and it comes with a man's price." "He's 13. So am I." Naruto's eyes had gone gold. He made his choice. A man who seeks snakes deserves their venom. Sakura Haruno was standing by the door with her hands clenched and tears on her face, and she said his name, and Naruto looked at her, and something in his voice gentled by a degree, which was the most it ever did. "Sakura, if I go after him, I will bring back a body, because I don't hold back, and he will make me use everything." He held her eyes. "Send the ones who'll try to talk him down. Send Shikamaru. Send Neji. He understands cages. They'll fail and Sasuke will live. And one day he'll come home on his own feet, or he won't come home at all. That's the best road available, and you know it." Sakura's mouth trembled. "You could stop him. I could kill him," Naruto said. "Those are different verbs." Tsunade Senju looked at him across the table for a long moment. "You're going somewhere else," she said. "Aren't you?" "Yes." "Where?" "Down," Naruto said, and walked out. The retrieval squad left at 9 that morning. Shikamaru, Neji, Kiba, Choji, Rock Lee. They fought like devils. They failed. They came home broken and alive, all 5 of them, which is more than can be said for the version of this story where things went differently, and Sasuke Uchiha crossed into Rice Country at sunset with a bad taste in his mouth. And while all of that happened, Naruto Uzumaki was already 40 feet underground. He had been building toward this for 2 years. Here is what nobody in Konoha understood about the boy from the ditch. They saw the fire and the chain and assumed he was a hammer. What he actually was, first and foremost, was patient. He had learned patience from 400 years of a dead man's waiting, and from a stonemason with 1 leg who taught him to read the grain before he struck. He had spent 2 years reading the grain. He had followed clerks home. He had memorized the shift rotations of maintenance crews who serviced tunnels that no municipal map recorded. He had walked into the archives with a Genin's requisition slip and read 11 years of ventilation invoices, and he had noticed that a shuttered warehouse behind the old torture division was being built for enough air circulation to support 200 people. He had opened a small portal in an alley and let something out of it that could smell chakra, and followed it. He had let 3 separate root tails follow him for 6 months and learned their faces and their gaits, and from Tobei's old lessons, learned their walks. He knew the location of every entrance. He knew there were 4, and that the 4th was known to 11 men. He went in through the 4th. The entrance came up under the floor of a disused sewage cistern in the eastern quarter. There was a stone plug with a seal matrix on it that would have taken a Konoha barrier team 2 days. Naruto put his palm flat on it and burned the matrix out from the inside in 11 seconds. Because seals are chakra and his fire went past chakra, and the plug fell inward and hit a floor 80 feet below with a boom that rolled away down a corridor lit by low blue lamps. 211 root operatives heard that boom. Naruto Uzumaki dropped 80 feet, landed in a crouch on the broken plug, and stood up in a corridor of gray stone, with a ceiling too low for comfort and blue lamps every 20 feet as far as the eye could see. He reached up and pulled his mask down. The flesh went off his face, and the corridor filled with gold light, and the shadows of the lamps ran away up the walls, and the air above his head began to shimmer. The chain came down out of his sleeve, one link at a time, and pooled on the stone. And the rattle went down that corridor, and around a corner, and down another corridor, and into an assembly hall where 60 operatives were forming rank, and every one of them heard it. "I am Hanzo Hasashi." 2 voices in one throat, and the walls took it and passed it on. "And you will all burn." Then they came, and I'm going to tell you all of it, because they earned that much. The first response squad came around the corner in a wedge. 8 operatives, wall running, blades out, 2 on the ceiling. Root doctrine for a single intruder in a corridor. Overwhelm from 3 planes at once, accept losses of up to 50%. Naruto threw the chain into the ceiling pair first. Kunai chain. The kunai went through the first man's mask and out through the stone above him and stuck. And Naruto pulled, and the operative came down off the ceiling and into the floor at a speed that ended the argument. The second ceiling runner was still turning when the chain came back through the air on the return arc and took his legs out from under his run, and he hit the wall, and Naruto's palm found his chest before he'd finished sliding down it. And the fire went in, and the man went gray from the inside. 6 left in the wedge. They were on him. He fought them with the Shirai Ryu, and this is where the corridors got bad for Root, because they had files on the Gentle Fist, and files on the Uchiha Interception style, and files on 11 different sword schools, and they had exactly nothing on a martial art from a country that had never existed. It was close. It was low. It used elbows and knees and the heel of the hand, and it did not have a single defensive form in it, because the man who built it had decided 400 years ago that defense was for people with something to lose. An operative caught Naruto's wrist and got a burning forearm across his throat. One went for a leg sweep, and Naruto stepped into the sweep, dropped his knee on the man's ribcage, and left him folded around it. 2 came in together from the flanks, and Naruto burst into fire and vanished. Netherrealm step. And 2 burning outlines of a boy stayed behind in the air where he'd been, and both operatives ran through them and into each other, and he came out of the ceiling above them with both hands full of hellfire. Hellfire blades. He landed between them and turned once, and both blades went out sideways at hip height, and the fire went in and up and out, and neither of them made it to the floor in one condition. The last of the wedge, the squad leader, took 2 steps backward and hit a wall panel to signal the deeper levels. "The chain does not miss," Naruto said. It didn't. He pulled the man 40 feet up the corridor along the floor and stepped on his back, and the corridor was clear. 9 seconds. 8 operatives. Then the alarm seals lit up the whole complex in red, and Root came out of every door on the level. What follows is the part that got clipped and shared and paused and rewound, and I'll give it to you in the order it happened. Corridor 4, the long one, 90 yards with lamps down both sides. 40 operatives forming a shield wall at the far end with a barrier team behind them, 5 ranks deep. They put up a triple-layer chakra wall, the same class of barrier that had held the 3rd Hokage on his own roof. Naruto walked down that corridor at a steady pace, with the chain dragging behind him on the stone, and the rattle got louder for 11 full seconds. And 40 conditioned killers who had been trained out of fear from the age of 4 stood behind a barrier and listened to iron scrape on rock and discovered that the training had a limit. He put out one hand. The barrier burned like paper. He walked into the shield wall, 90 yards, 0 survivors, the armory level where they had prepared for him. They had learned in the first 6 minutes that he could not be cut, So they went for volume. 11 operatives on the gantry above with explosive tags, 400 of them, seated across the whole floor and the ceiling and the crates. They detonated the room. The blast took out 2 support columns and blew the doors off the level. When the smoke cleared enough to see, there was a shape standing in the middle of the crater with fire coming off it, and it was already looking up at the gantry. He came up the wall. He came up it head first, hand over hand, faster than a man falls. And the 11 on the gantry got off 2 more tags, and then he was among them, and the gantry ended. One of them tried to jump. Naruto took him out of the air with the chain, and there is a phrase from that fight that survived, because the operative who was hiding behind an overturned crate heard it and lived through the night to write it down. Get over here. Sublevel 3, the barracks corridor, blue lamps and 100 identical doors. This is where a root operative named Konoe, 22 years old, 4 years from his own name, pressed himself into a door frame and looked left down the hall. He wrote it out afterward. He was one of the 11 who survived, and he wrote it out for the inquiry, and the sentence he used has been repeated so many times, it has gone into the language. I looked down the corridor, and I saw the fire in my own visor before I saw the man, and then I saw my mask reflected in the fire, and then the chain came. He lived because he dropped to his knees and put his blade on the floor, and because Naruto Uzumaki had a code, and the code drew a line between a man who chooses and a child who was taken from a bed at the age of 4, he passed Konoe without slowing down. "Stay down," Naruto said. "You'll get a name later." Level 1, the command deck. This is where he met the 2 of them. Torune Aburame and Fu Yamanaka stepped out into the corridor together, and both of them were something more than the rest, and they knew it. Fu's eyes went white as he threw the mind transfer, and Torune came in with his sleeves already open, and his poison insects swarming out in a black cloud. The insects went into the fire and stopped being insects. Fu Yamanaka's consciousness leapt across the corridor, entered Naruto Uzumaki's head, and the inquiry record notes that his body dropped where it stood, with an expression on it that the medics never fully described. He went into a mine that had a burning plane in the middle of it, and something ancient sitting on that plane, and he came back out screaming, and his mind was 3/4 gone. He spent the rest of his life in a ward, and he would occasionally look up at a nurse and say, "There are 2 of him. There are 2 of him. One of them is 400 years old," and then go back to the wall. Torune got closer. Torune got a hand on him. Naruto took his wrist, turned, and drove him head first through a stone wall into the next room, and followed him through the hole and finished it there. 211 operatives were on the roster that night. 11 walked out. Every one of the 11 was on their knees with a blade on the floor when the fire passed them. And then there was one door left. It was steel, 8 inches thick, at the end of a corridor with no lamps in it at all. The only stretch of that complex where the light had been removed on purpose, because the man behind it preferred to be listened to instead of looked at. Naruto burned the hinges out and pushed it over. Danzo Shimura's inner sanctum was a round room with a low table, a single lamp, and 11 scrolls stacked in perfect order. He was sitting when the door came down. He stood up without hurrying, and he had his cane in one hand, and the bandages over the right half of his face were fresh. He looked at the burning skull in his doorway, and he did not flinch, and you have to give him that much. "So," he said, "the asset came back. You should have counted the graves. I have counted every grave in this village." Danzo set the cane against the table. 41 civilians in a slum, an unsanctioned power structure forming around the single most dangerous weapon in the land of fire. I made a decision that a Hokage was too sentimental to make. I have made 11,000 such decisions, and this village stands because of them. "They fed me," Naruto said. "They owned you. Loyalty is the only real currency, and they were accumulating it in an alley where I could not audit it." Danzo's visible eye did not move. "Every choice I have made, I made for the leaf." A man says that when he wants a building to take the blame for him. Naruto stepped into the room and the lamp flame bent away from him. "You will answer for what you did. Every soul does. Then let us find out which of us the world can spare. The bandages came off his right arm, and the arm underneath had 10 Sharingans set into the flesh in 2 rows. 10 stolen eyes taken from 10 dead Uchiha, and each one of them opened. Danzo Shimura's great secret was Izanagi. The technique lets a man with a Sharingan take a fatal wound, and then declare that the wound belonged to a dream. Reality resets. The body is whole. The eye that paid for it goes blind. He had 10 eyes. He had 10 deaths in his pocket, and no one on the continent had ever gotten past the second. He came at Naruto with wind chakra sheeting off his palm and put his hand through the boy's chest. Naruto burned his arm off at the elbow. Danzo took the strike that killed him 3/4 of a second later and closed his eye and said, "Izanagi." The room ran backward. The blood came off the walls. The arm came back. Danzo Shimura stood whole in front of the low table with the lamp still lit and a Sharingan on his forearm gone milk white. And he laughed out loud, because this is the moment where they all understood, and understanding was the beginning of losing. "Do you see?" he said. "You cannot." He stopped, because there was something under his ribs on the right side, and it was burning. The reset had returned his body, every cell of it restored to the state before the wound. His arm was back, his skin was whole, and behind the whole skin, in a place with no name on any chart, there was a hole with fire in it, and the fire was still going. Hellfire burns the soul. Izanagi rewrites the world. The two claims do not fight each other. They simply operate in separate rooms, and only one of those rooms has a door that Danzo Shimura's stolen eyes could reach. "That is impossible," Danzo said. "You reset the flesh." Naruto said, "I never aimed at the flesh." He came in. Danzo died the second time with a burning hand through his sternum and reset, and the burn was worse, and a second eye went white. He died the third time, chain around the throat, a hard pull, a wall, and reset, and the burn spread out through his chest and found the chakra network and began to run along it, and a third eye went white. He tried distance. He tried the vacuum blades and threw a room's worth of wind at the boy and got after images of fire for his trouble, and then died the fourth time with 2 hellfire blades crossed in his back and reset and screamed. That is when he started screaming. And the screaming is the part the 11 survivors on the upper levels heard through 80 feet of stone. The 5th reset left him with the burn in his throat. The 6th burned out whatever it is that a man uses to want things. And Danzo Shimura, who had wanted one thing his entire life, felt it go. By the 7th, the fire had reached the arm. The Sharingan eyes began to cloud from the inside, not blinded by use, but severed. The connection between the stolen chakra and the stolen eyes cut off by something that operated a whole level beneath ninjutsu, and they went dead in a row, tick, 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 like lamps down a hallway going out. He tried Izanagi on the 8th eye, and reality flickered and refused. The room stopped resetting. Danzo Shimura was on his knees on the floor of his own sanctum with an arm full of blind Uchiha eyes and a body that was intact and hollow. And there was a hole in the middle of him that no medic in the world had the vocabulary to describe. And he was weeping without meaning to, because the fire had gotten in behind the part of him that decided things. "I built this village," he whispered. "You built a basement," Naruto said, "and you filled it with children you stole from beds." He crossed the room and the chain came off his arm, and he looped it once around Danzo Shimura's throat and drew it tight. "You hide in the roots, old man," Naruto said, "but the fire burns deep." Behind him, the air tore. The portal opened all the way to the ceiling this time, and the light that came out of it was orange and red and moving, and there was a landscape inside it. A plain of black glass under a coal bed sky with towers on the horizon, and figures on that plain, thousands of them, turning to face the opening at the same time. Danzo Shimura looked into it. His face at the end held the only honest expression it had worn in 60 years. "Wait," he said. Naruto pulled. The old man went in on his heels with a chain around his throat, and his blind arm dragging on the stone. And the shapes on the plain came forward to meet him, and every one of them had something to say to a man who had operated in the shadows of a village for 6 decades and left a great many unfinished conversations behind. The tear sealed. Naruto Uzumaki stood alone in a round room with one lamp burning, and he coiled his chain back up his arm, and the flesh came back over his skull, and he pulled his mask up. Then he did one more thing, and this is the thing that mattered most, and it took him 4 hours. He went back through the complex level by level, and he opened every cell. There were 31 children in the training wing between the ages of 4 and 9, taken from orphanages, taken from beds, halfway through a program designed to remove their names. He got all 31 of them out. He carried 2 of them. The 11 survivors on their knees in the corridors he sent up ahead with the children, and they went, because they had spent one night learning what happened to people who chose wrong, and because a boy with a chain had told them they'd get names later. He burned the archive on his way out. 60 years of Danzo Shimura's files. The blackmail, the leverage, the names of every official in 3 countries who owed the old man something. He stood in the middle of it and let the room go up. Then he walked up the stairs of the 4th entrance, pushed aside a stone plug, and came out into an alley in the eastern quarter just as the sky was starting to gray. He climbed to the top of the Hokage monument. He stood on the 4th's head and looked out over Konagakure at dawn, and the village lay under him in the last of the blue, with the smoke of the bakeries just starting and the lamplighters going home. Somewhere below, 31 children were being fed in a shelter by 11 confused former operatives who kept touching their own faces. Somewhere below, Tsunade Senju was going to open her office door in about 2 hours and find a file on her desk with a burned corner. Somewhere below, a retrieval squad was limping home without Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno was sitting in a hospital corridor, and Hinata Hyuga was making rice balls with less salt in them. The village slept. It had no idea what had happened underneath it. It never would, entirely. Naruto Uzumaki pulled down his mask and the wind on the monument took his hair, and his face was 13 years old and looked about 40. 6 years earlier, a woman with 3 teeth had crawled across a burning floor toward the door because a boy was outside. "It's done," he said. "Kaede, Jinzo, Tobe, Ame, all of you. The man who sent them is in the fire, and he will stay in the fire, and I put his house in the ground." His hand closed on the chain at his forearm. "I have one thing left. I said I'd build it again. Orphans, cripples, the ones nobody counted, yellow and black, and a code and a home that no village can audit." He stood there a while longer. "The Shirai-ryu rises," he said. "I'm not asking anyone's permission." The sun came up over the eastern wall and hit him, and he was a black and yellow shape on top of a stone face with a chain hanging off his arm. And that is the image that ought to freeze. And in the silence after it, the good silence, the one that comes after a debt gets paid, something happened that Naruto Uzumaki had never once in 6 years experienced. A portal opened by itself. It tore the air 3 feet to his right, 8 feet tall, and he had zero part in it. He turned toward it with the chain already coming loose, and the fire inside it was a color he had never seen there before. And out of it came a voice that was neither Hanzo Hasashi's nor Kurama's nor anything that had ever spoken to him. It was a great many voices agreeing. "Grandmaster." Naruto's eyes went gold. "You have taken 11,000 souls out of our hands and given us one old man in trade. You have opened our door 41 times in 6 years and walked back through it every single time." The fire and the tear moved closer to the opening, and shapes crowded it, and behind the shapes, far back on the plane of black glass, something the size of a mountain stood up. "The bargain is finished. The Netherrealm wants its champion home." "I have a clan to build," Naruto said. "Then build it quickly." The portal sealed, and a mile out from the eastern wall, on a ridge above the road, 2 travelers in black cloaks patterned with red clouds stood and watched the top of the Hokage monument. And the taller one shifted the enormous wrapped weight on his back and grinned around his teeth. "So that's the Nine-Tails box," Kisame Hoshigaki said. "Doesn't look like much." Itachi Uchiha did not answer for a long moment. Both of his eyes had gone red, and he was looking at the space where a tear in the world had been. And for the first time in 11 years, there was something in his face. "Change the plan," he said. "We take him now tonight, and we do it while he's tired." Leader said 2 weeks. Leader has never seen what I am looking at. The wind came up off the road and moved through the trees, and on top of the monument, 13-year-old Naruto Uzumaki turned his head east and looked straight down the ridge at the two of them, and the chain rattled. Once, and then again, and the sound carried a mile down the eastern road, the way iron carries over still air before dawn. On the ridge, Kasame Hoshigaki's grin stopped moving. It stayed on his face the way a hat stays on a dead man, and he lifted one hand off the wrapping of Samahata without meaning to. "Itachi," he said, "he's looking at us." "I know. He's looking at us, from the monument, through a tree line, in the last of the blue." Kasame's tongue came out over his teeth. Nobody sees a ridge from a monument. Itachi Uchiha said nothing, because Itachi had already understood the thing Kasame was still assembling, and understanding had arrived with a chill under his ribs. He had spent 11 years reading men through a Sharingan. He had read the 4th Mizukage. He had read his own father across a dinner table while planning to end him. He looked at a 13-year-old boy standing on a stone forehead 1,100 yards away, and got back a flat, level, unhurried attention, and the attention had weight in it, the way a mountain has weight when you stand under it. Then the boy stepped off the 4th Hokage's head. He did not jump down the face of the monument. He walked off the edge into a burst of yellow fire, and a scorched outline of a boy hung in the air where he had been for half a second afterward, and Kasame's next breath came out with a word in it that has been removed from 3 separate official transcripts. Naruto Uzumaki arrived on the ridge. He came out of the air 40 feet in front of them at a walk, already walking, one foot coming down on the pine needles as if he had been walking that whole way. The chain hung off his right forearm in loops, and it swung once and settled, and every bird on that ridge left at the same time. "You said tonight," Naruto said. "Tonight was in 11 hours. I don't like waiting." Kisame moved, because Kisame always moved first, and because Kisame was the kind of man who solved fear by increasing the volume. Samehada came off his back mid-stride, and the water came with it. The water release he was famous for. A mass of it dragged up out of nothing and thrown across the ridge in a wall. 40 tons of ocean where there had been forest air, and the pines went over sideways in it. He came through the middle of his own wave with his sword up and his mouth open, and he was the fastest thing on that ridge, and it made 0 difference at all. Naruto's arm snapped forward. "Come here!" The kunai went out through the water. It punched a hole through the wave, crossed the gap, and hooked Kasame Hoshigaki around the wrist above the sword hand. And then Naruto's fist closed and his shoulder turned. Understand the mass involved. Kisame weighed 240 pounds without the sword, and Samehada weighed more than he did, and he was moving forward at full speed with all of it braced through his hips. The pull took him off his line like a hooked fish coming out of a river. His feet left the ground. The ridge itself made a sound, a deep grinding crack as the stone under Naruto's heel split from the anchor of it, and Kasame came across 38 feet of air backward with his own weapon dragging behind him. Naruto met him at the halfway point. The knee came up wrapped in yellow fire, and it landed in the flat of Samehada, and Samehada, which had eaten the chakra of 200 men and complained about the flavor, bent. The scales along its spine shrieked. It bent backward around the boy's leg, and the shock went through the hilt and through Kasame's forearms and into his collarbone, and the collarbone broke in the same instant the sword folded. Then, Kasame went through the tree line. I want to give you the distance honestly, because Kasame himself later gave it under oath to a man who does not exist and got it wrong by half. He traveled 41 meters in a straight line at chest height. He took out 9 pine trees on the way. The 9th one stopped him, and it stopped him by breaking, and he came down in a crater of needles and bark, with his shoulder out of its socket, and his sword screaming at him in a voice only he could hear. Behind him, Itachi Uchiha's hands were already moving. He did the correct thing. There is no version of that ridge where Itachi does anything else. He had watched a chain break a physical premise in 1 second, and he made the professional decision. You do not overpower a target like that. You go past the body and take the mind, and Itachi Uchiha's mind was the sharpest instrument in the Akatsuki. His eyes changed. The 3 blades of the Mangekyo turned in the red. Tsukuyomi. The world folded. That is what it does. It folds like paper, and it puts the target inside a space where Itachi Uchiha owns every second, and every second lasts as long as he wants it to. And men who had killed hundreds had come out of that space 3 days older and unable to hold a cup. The illusion went into Naruto Uzumaki's head, and it found the front room empty. Genjutsu works on the mind. It rides the nervous system. It puts pictures behind the eyes. It tells the brain a story and waits for the brain to believe it. There was a mind in there, and Itachi got hold of it and started building his crosses and his eternal red sky. And then, under the mind, the illusion touched something else. It touched a plane of black glass under a coal-colored sky, and a man sitting on that plane with his hands on his knees. And the man had been dead for 400 years and had been shown worse than crosses by things that specialize in it. Hanzo Hasashi looked up at the red sky Itachi had built. He was uninterested. The Tsukuyomi came apart the way a candle comes apart in a foundry. Itachi felt it fail through his own eye, and he felt the failure travel back up the line and land in him, and the blood came out of his tear duct 3 seconds early. For the first time since he was 9 years old, Itachi Uchiha's hands slowed down. "That was your best one," Naruto said. "You should have opened with your second." He was gone before the sentence finished. There was the burst of yellow, the burned outline, and the words came out of the fire itself. Netherrealm step. He came out of the air behind Itachi's left shoulder with the chain already in flight, and it went around Itachi's neck and his upper arm together and cinched. And Naruto put his heel down and pulled. The Uchiha came off his feet. He was fast enough to get a substitution seal half-formed, and half-formed is a word that means failed. Naruto swung him the way a stonemason swings a hammer he has used for 11 years, one full arc, 40 feet of it, and drove Itachi Uchiha face first into a granite shelf on the ridge crest, so hard that the shelf split along its grain, and a shelf of rock the size of a cart lifted and settled. Then he pulled him back out of the hole and did it again. The second impact was the one that made Kasame decide. Kasame had watched the fourth Mizukage go down. He had been in the room when men who had never lost anything found out what losing was. He was a professional monster in a coat full of professional monsters, and he pulled himself up out of 9 broken pines with one arm hanging and a sword that was cowering, and he looked at the ridge crest where a 13-year-old boy stood in a cloud of granite dust holding a chain with the last living Uchiha on the end of it, and he made the only call available. "We're leaving," Kasame said. "Itachi, we are leaving. I'll tell leader myself. I'll tell him to his face. That thing in the file is wrong. That file says Jinchuriki. That is not a Jinchuriki. That's a..." He ran out of nouns. "We're leaving." Naruto let the chain go slack. Itachi rolled onto his side and got a knee under himself, and blood came off his chin in a long string, and he did not reach for a weapon. He looked up through one ruined red eye, and he did the last thing Kasame expected, which was to keep thinking. "You could have finished that," Itachi said. "Yes." "Why didn't you?" "Because I read your file too," Naruto said. He came down off the granite shelf. "You've had a wet cough for 2 years. Your left eye is going. Every technique you own costs you blood you can't replace. And you spent your first exchange on a mind trick instead of an assassination, which means you were never here to kill me. You were here to see me." He stopped 6 feet away. "You wanted to know if the thing living in Konoha was worse than the thing your organization is building." Itachi's breath went out through his teeth. "And is it?" "Yes." The wind came up the ridge and moved the smashed pines around. "Your brother is in Rice Country," Naruto said. "He's getting stronger. He'll come for you when he's ready, and it will be sooner than you planned. That's all I have for you today." Itachi Uchiha stood up. It took him 2 tries. He wiped his mouth on his sleeve, and he looked at the boy a moment longer, and whatever the Sharingan gave him back must have been unpleasant, because he closed his eyes before he turned away. The 2 of them went down the far side of the ridge, one holding a shoulder and one holding a rib, and they went slowly, and neither of them turned around. Naruto watched the road until both signatures were gone off the edge of what he could feel. "Send the rest a message," he called after them. "Tell them what happened here." Then he coiled the chain back up his forearm, one loop at a time, and went home to a shelter in the eastern quarter where 31 children with numbers instead of names were eating rice at a long table and had been told a man was coming to talk to them. They came back, of course. Itachi and Kasame both came back with a different plan. And I'll tell you about it when we get there. And I'll tell you now so you can stop worrying about it. The second plan worked worse than the first. Here is what a year of building looks like when the man building it is 14. He bought land. He bought it honestly, with mission pay and with the bounty money off 11 rogue nin. And the deed went through the Fire Country Land Office in the daimyo's capital instead of Konoha's registry, which was a move nobody in the village noticed for 4 months and which several people were furious about afterward. 200 acres of hill country and old-growth forest 11 miles northeast of the village, with a river through it and a valley in the middle of it, and a cliff face on the north side where the wind came down cold in the mornings. He walked the valley with a stonemason's eye. Genzo had taught him to read the grain before he struck. He put the training ground where the ground drained. He put the sleeping hall where the sun would hit the wall at breakfast. Then he came back to the shelter and stood at the end of a long table with 31 children looking at him. The oldest was 9, the youngest was 4. They sat with their backs straight because that was how they had been taught to sit, and they did not fidget. And that is the detail that will tell you everything about where they had spent their lives. A room of small children with the posture of soldiers and the eyes of people waiting to be told what they were for. You have numbers, Naruto said. They gave you those so you'd be easier to file. Files burned 2 months ago. What's left is you. Nobody spoke. You get 3 choices, and you get to make them yourself, and nobody in this room gets to make one for you. He held up a hand and counted it off. 1, if you remember the name you had before they took you, say it and it's yours again. 2, if you don't remember it, make one up. Any word you like the sound of. 3, if neither of those is right, keep your number and wait, and when you've done something that a name should be attached to, you take it then. A boy at the middle of the table raised his hand the way they had been trained to, elbow locked. Sir, what if we pick wrong? Then you pick again next year, Naruto said. It's a name. It isn't a sentence. 4 of them remembered. 2 of the 4 had names their families had shouted after them in the street, and one of those 2 cried so hard he had to leave the room, and Mishi took him out and sat with him on the step. 19 of them invented. A girl chose Suzume because there had been a sparrow on the vent grate in the training wing, and it had come back for 6 days. A boy chose Hachi because he liked the number 8 better than the number 30. One boy stood up and announced with total conviction that his name was Chain, and 30 children turned to look at Naruto, and Naruto said, "Pick again." And the boy sat down and thought about it for 3 days, and came back as Rikuto. 10 of them asked for one of the 41. That is the part I want you to sit with. Naruto had the memorial stones copied onto a scroll and hung on the wall of the sleeping hall, 41 names in a column, and he told them what each name had been in life. And 10 children walked up to that wall and took a dead person's name off it and carried it out of the room. A silent girl, 5 years old, who had never spoken since Root took her and possibly never spoke before, went up to the wall and put her finger on the 4th name down and looked back at him. Naruto crossed the room and read where her finger was. "Aiming," he said. She nodded once. He got down on one knee in front of her and he took a piece of chalk out of his pocket. He carried one and had for 6 years, and nobody in Konoha ever found out why, and he put it in her hand. She drew, he said. "You don't have to, but it's yours if you want it." Ame drew on the walls of that sleeping hall for the next 4 years. The clan let her. There are 17 murals in the Shirai Ryu Hall today, and every one of them has a tall figure with yellow hair standing between the small figures and whatever is coming. And the guides who show visitors around do not explain them because they have learned that explaining ruins it. 2 kept their numbers. A stubborn boy called 12 who folded his arms and said he would rather earn it, and a girl called 19 who said nothing at all and simply did not step forward, and who Naruto looked at for a long moment before he moved on. "Fine," he said. 19, 12, fall in with the rest. The 11 who had knelt in the corridors got the same offer, and that took longer because they were grown men and women who had been conditioned out of their names at 4 and had spent 20 years being efficient. 8 of them took names from the ditch scroll. The tracker who had written the sentence about seeing the fire in his own visor stood in front of the wall for 2 hours, and then he took the name of a blind beggar who could tell a man by the sound of his walk. "Tobei," he said. "He'd have liked you," Naruto said. "He'd have known your step before you turned the corner." The training started at the beginning of spring, and it started with rope. Not with chakra, not with hand seals, not with the 3 transformation exercises that every academy in the elemental nation starts with. He handed each of them a length of cord with a weighted iron dart on the end of it, and said, "This is the foundation. Everything else in this clan is built on top of this." Then he taught them to walk. That was the whole first month. Footwork, weight, breathing, how to stand so that a man twice your size can put both hands on you and move nothing. He had them hold stances in the yard until their legs shook, and then until they stopped shaking, exactly the way he had done it alone in the academy yard while a village looked past him. Tobei ran the conditioning. Mishi ran the hall. Genzo, the big one, built the forge, and by summer that forge was turning out rope darts with the Shirai Ryu mark on the collar, a spiral inside a flame, because a boy from the ditch had been given a name by 40 people who had nothing to give, and he was not letting the spiral go. The second month, he taught them to throw. The rope dart is a bad weapon in untrained hands. It is heavy, it comes back, and it will hit you in the face harder than you hit anything with it. There were 41 broken fingers in the Shirai Ryu's first year, and 1 broken nose, and a great deal of swearing from children who had been raised in a place where swearing was inefficient and who were discovering the point of it. On a hot afternoon at the end of the second month, a 9-year-old boy named Hachi threw clean. I want to describe it the way the clan describes it, because they still tell this one. 40 feet of range, a wooden post with a rope ring nailed to the top of it, the ring the width of a man's hand. He had thrown at that post 411 times and hit it 11, and never once put the dart through the ring, and he came up on the balls of his feet and did the hip turn. Naruto had drilled into all of them, and the cord ran out through his fingers with a hiss. The dart went through the ring, rapped twice. Hachi stood there holding the other end with the whole line taut and his mouth open. Then 30 children lost their minds at the same time. They screamed. They screamed like children, which most of them had never done in their lives, and Suzume tackled him, and 2 of the smallest ones ran in circles for no reason a grown person could identify, and Rikuto fell over. Tobei, standing at the fence, put a hand over the lower half of his own face and had to look at the sky for a while. Naruto was on the north cliff, sitting where he could see the whole valley, and he did not come down, and he did not shout anything encouraging. He watched them scream in the yard for a while. Then he stood up and coiled his chain and went to check the forge. Kurama, who had 11 months of opinions about this operation, spoke up from the back of his head. "Sentiment. From you. Efficiency," Naruto said. "A clan that can celebrate can hold a line. You are a liar, and I have been inside your skull for 6 years, and you were not thinking about lines. Keep your teeth off my soul. Keep your fire off mine," the fox said comfortably, and went back to sleep. Konoha noticed. Konoha noticed in the way a village notices that a bruise it has been ignoring has become a shape. Tsunade sent Shizune twice. The first time was in the 5th month with a scroll bearing the Hokage's seal and language about the registration of clan status entities within Fire Country's borders. Shizune walked up a gravel road through a gate that had 2 children on it, both of them 11 feet up on posts with rope darts in their hands, and they did not challenge her and did not stop her. And the entire way up that road she had the feeling of being counted. Naruto read the scroll standing in the yard, while 40 people ran a form behind him. "Tell her the Shirai Ryu will take contracts from Konoha at fair rate and will refuse any contract that puts a blade in a civilian's back," he said. "Tell her that when Konoha's forces can't reach a thing, we will reach it, and we won't invoice for that. Tell her the code is written on the hall wall, and she's welcome to come read it. And the registration? There's nothing to register. We aren't a village asset. Naruto. Shizune folded her hands. She's going to say that's the same thing Root said. He turned around then, and Shizune Kato, who had followed Tsunade Senju through 11 countries and had seen the inside of every kind of war, took an involuntary step backward. Root took children out of beds, Naruto said. I take children out of the places Root leaves them. When you can't tell the difference, come back and I'll walk you through the hall, and you can count the beds and read the names, and you can tell me which of the 31 you'd like to sign back over to a filing office. Shizune came back with a report that Tsunade read twice, and then sat down and looked out the window at nothing for a while. The second visit was in the 9th month, and it was less official, and mostly Shizune's own idea. And she brought a crate of medical supplies she had signed out under a heading that was creative. And she stayed for dinner, and Mishi put her at the long table between 2 9-year-olds who asked her 40 questions about whether it was true that you could reattach a finger. She left at moonrise. On the way out, she stopped in the sleeping hall and looked at the wall with the 41 names on it, and at the chalk drawings under it that came up to the height of a small child's reach, and she stood there long enough that Naruto came in behind her. Does it matter? She said, and she was not being cruel, and she said it the way a medic says a hard thing straight. 41 people in a slum 6 years ago. You've built all of this on them. They didn't have. She stopped and started over. Nobody in the elemental nations knows those names. They aren't in a record. There's no clan register with Kade in it. There's no library with Genzo's work in it. You've built a fortress on people the world already forgot. Every grave has a name on it, Naruto said. I remember all of them. Shizune turned around. Kade boiled garbage into soup and gave me the first bowl. Genzo had one leg and taught a hated child to read stone. Tobei was blind and knew every step in the alley, and put himself between 6 ambu and a shrine full of sleeping children with his hands empty. Naruto's voice had gone lower, which is what it did instead of louder. The world forgot them because the world never looked. That's the world's failure, and I'm correcting it. In 40 years, there will be 600 people in yellow and black across 3 countries, and every one of them will know who Kade was, and the world will know her name whether it wants to or not. Shizune Kato went back to Konoha and told Tsunade the Shirai Ryu was not a threat to the village. You're sure? Tsunade said. I'm sure they're not a threat to the village. Shizune set her bag down. I'd hate to be the thing they decide is a threat to them. The Shirai Ryu took its first contracts in that year, and I'll give you 3, because 3 is enough to show the shape. A trafficking route out of the land of rivers, running children north through a pass. The Shirai Ryu closed it in one night with 6 operators and no fatalities on their own side, and the ledger they pulled out of the lead wagon put 11 names in front of the Fire Daimyo's magistrates. A rogue jonin out of Waterfall who had killed 9 tax collectors and taken a village hostage. Tobei talked him out onto the road, and Naruto met him there, and the man was on his knees with a blade on the ground in under 1 minute. And he lived, and he is currently serving out 40 years in a Fire Country facility and has never once asked for a retrial. In a mine in the land of hot water where a company had been working 91 indentured laborers underground and had solved a collapse by sealing the shaft with men still in it. The Shirai Ryu opened that shaft with 11 people in a portal, and the company's owner, a very rich man with 11 guards, met a boy in a black mask in his own study. You cannot come in here, he said. Do you know who I? Wrong choice, Naruto said. The mask came down. The flesh went off his face, and the yellow fire wrapped his skull and curled backward off the crown, and the study lamp bent away from him. And a very rich man discovered that the whole framework of his life had been rented. He ran for the window. Run, Naruto said. I want you to. The man got the window open. He got one leg over the sill, and he was fast for a man of 60, and there was a burst of yellow fire behind him, and a scorched outline of a boy on the study floor. And Naruto Uzumaki was standing on the balcony rail outside with his arm already up. The chain took him around the chest. This chain has never missed. They found him in the road below the house with his ribs in the wrong order and his eyes open and nothing behind them. The mine reopened as a cooperative 11 weeks later, and the 91 who came up out of it went home, and 4 of them came back the following spring and walked up a gravel road in the hill country and asked if the clan was taking grown men. It was. That is how the Shirai Ryu grew, not with recruiters, but with people walking up the road. By the end of that first year, there were 58 of them, and the world had started saying the name out loud. And in a cave in Rain Country, a man with a great many eyes read a report and put it in a stack that was getting to be a problem. Then the Akatsuki took Gaara of the desert, and the Shirai Ryu found out about it 11 hours before Konoha did. That is worth explaining, because it is the moment the clan stopped being a curiosity and became an intelligence service that 3 villages started lying to each other about. Naruto had been tracking the Akatsuki since the Ridge. Not the members, the logistics. 10 people in black cloaks who never resupply from a village still have to eat, still have to buy ceiling paper, still have to pay somebody for a hideout with running water. He had 11 of his people doing nothing but reading purchase records in 4 countries. Tobei had a map with pins in it. Every extraction the Akatsuki had ever run had happened inside 3 days' travel of a cave system with a river through it, because the ceiling statue needed water for the ritual, and the ritual took 3 days. So when Sunagakure's watchtower went silent and a great deal of sand came down in the desert north of the village, the Shirai Ryu did not need to ask where the trail went. They already had 4 candidate sites, and Tobei had already ruled out 2. Naruto went alone. He went alone for 2 reasons, and he gave both of them out loud in the hall. Because he had promised these people he would never move them without telling them why. 1. The clan is 14 months old, and there are 8 S-rank fighters in that organization, and I won't spend you on a rescue I can do myself. 2. I want them to see one man walk into their operation. I want it in their heads. He was already tying off his sleeves. Tobei, hold the valley. If I'm gone more than 4 days, seal the hall and send word to the Sands border post, not to Konoha. Why not Konoha, Grandmaster? Konoha will hold a meeting, Naruto said, and left. The Akatsuki's site was a river cave under a granite shelf in the land of rivers, with a boulder sealed across the mouth and 5 tags on it, and it was 200 yards up a dry gully with clear sky above. Deidara was on Overwatch, which was the correct decision by whoever made it, and which was about to become the worst place to be standing in the elemental nations. He saw a single figure come up the gully at a walk, and he did what he always did. He laughed, and he reached into the mouth on his palm, and he threw art. The C1 birds came down in a flock, 11 of them, then 30, tiny white things fluttering wrong the way clay does when it is pretending to be alive. They went for the boy in black, and they got within 30 feet. And then something happened that Deidara had 0 framework for. They cooked off in the air, all of them at once, in a ring around a walking figure, because the hellfire coming off Naruto Uzumaki's skin does not respect distance the way flame does, and clay saturated with chakra sits inside its own fuse, and when the fuse burns before the target arrives, the art becomes a light show. 30 detonations went off in a sphere 20 feet out from him, and every blast wave went outward, because there was a wall of pressure at the center of the ring that the concussion could not push into, and the gully walls came off in sheets, and the dust went up 200 feet. Naruto walked out of the dust cone. He had not changed his pace. Deidara, 400 feet up on a bird the size of a fishing boat, stopped laughing and looked at that for a moment. Huh, he said. Art that burns is still burning, yeah? He went to C2. That is the big one, the dragon, the thing that had leveled a fortified position in Iwa's own records. He built it in 11 seconds while circling, and he sent it down the gully at the boy with its belly full of smaller ones, and he took his altitude up another 200 feet to watch, because Deidara enjoyed the view almost as much as the noise. The dragon got 100 yards. Naruto lifted his mask. The flesh went off his face and the gully filled with gold, and a mile away a sand tracking team saw the light come up over the ridgeline and stopped moving. Hellfire breath. The stream came out of him 60 feet wide, and it took the dragon in the chest, and the dragon detonated inside the fire, and the fire did not care. And what came out the far side of the blast was the same stream, going up the gully, going up the sky, a column of yellow-white that climbed 400 feet and kept climbing. Deidara took his bird sideways in the fastest maneuver of his career and lost the left wing anyway. He was very good. He got a new one built while falling. He came out of the tumble at 200 feet with a fresh wing and a face that had stopped enjoying itself, and he looked down at the gully and made the smart choice, which was to leave and report. "Nope," he said. "Nope, that's Sasori. It's your rescue now, yeah!" He turned north and put everything he had into it. "Run," Naruto said from the gully floor. "I want you to." Deidara heard it over the wind, which should have been impossible, and it went into his ear like cold water down a collar. He looked back over his shoulder. There was a burst of yellow fire on the gully floor and a burned outline of a boy where the boy had been. Netherrealm step. Naruto Uzumaki came out of the air 15 feet in front of the clay bird's head at 200 feet of altitude, with his arm already extended, and the last thing Deidara ever said with his own mouth was a swear word that lasted about a syllable and a half. "Come here!" The chain took him around the throat and shoulder. The pull came from a body with nothing under it, which means both of them went, and Naruto used that. He swung hard, with the whole mass of the bomber on the end of 40 feet of iron, and he threw Deidara down. 200 feet is enough. 200 feet into granite is more than enough. The bird came apart on the way, and Deidara hit the shelf above the cave mouth and did not move afterward. And the clay in his coat cooked off 11 seconds later and finished the argument, and that is the entire fight. It took less than a minute from the first C1 to the last of it, and it is the reason that in Iwagakure, for a generation afterward, the explosion release program was quietly reassigned. Naruto landed on the shelf, walked to the boulder, and put his palm on the 5-tag seal. It burned out from the inside in 11 seconds. Sasori of the Red Sand was waiting in the chamber, because Sasori did not run from things, and because Sasori had spent 30 years making himself into something that could not be hurt, and he had a theory about what was coming, and the theory was wrong in a way that no one had ever needed to explain to him before. He had already broken off the extraction. The statues' mouths were still open. Gaara of the desert lay on the stone at the foot of it, with his chest still and his gourd empty, and his sand gone gray and dead all around him on the floor. Naruto looked at for 2 seconds. 2 seconds is a long time for him. Hiriko is on the outside. Sasori said from inside the hunched puppet shell, "You will find the shell tedious. Everyone does. I'm not here for the shell." The tail came at him, and it came fast, and Naruto caught the plated joint of it in his left hand, and the poison went into his palm and stopped mattering because there was nothing living in that hand to poison at the moment. The fire went up the tail like flame up a fuse. Hiriko came apart into burning wood, and behind it, standing in the wreck, was a young man with red hair and a face that had been 20 for 35 years, and a core of living flesh in a compartment in his chest. Sasori looked at his own burning arm and understood the shape of the problem in one glance, which is the difference between Sasori and everyone else in his organization. "You burn the soul," he said. "That is the mechanism. That is why the snake ran." His face did something almost pleased. "Eternity was my life's work, and you are a boy with a counter-argument. You made yourself into a thing that can't die," Naruto said. "Then you used it to build corpses for a man who paid you. That was the choice, and it was yours, and you had 35 years to make a different one." The core in the chest lit up. That is all. The fire went in through the ribs of the puppet body and found the last living piece of Sasori of the Red Sand. The piece he had kept beating so he could keep going forever, and it burned there, and the puppet went down on its knees with 111 wooden joints locking at once. He had time for a sound. It came out flat, and then it stopped, and the eyes in that young face went out like lamps down a hallway. Naruto crossed the chamber and stood over Gaara. He did not touch him. There is a thing about being the wrong kind of hands, and he knew it. He stood there with the chain hanging off his forearm, and Kurama in the back of his head said the only thing the fox ever said about another Jinchuriki. They pulled the one tail out of him. That kills the host, always. I know. You cannot fix it. Fire does not put things back. I know, Naruto said, and sat down on the stone beside the body of a boy who had asked whether he was real, and waited. Chiyo of the Sand arrived 40 minutes later at the head of a squad with the Konoha team behind her. Kakashi, Sakura Haruno with her gloves already on, a sand tracking pair with their hands shaking. They came into that chamber and stopped because there was a burning wreck of Hiruko in the corner and Sasori's puppet body kneeling in the middle of the floor with the light gone out of it and a 14-year-old boy sitting cross-legged next to their Kazekage. Chiyo looked at her grandson's body for a long time. Who did that? She said. I did. Did he say anything? He said eternity was his life's work. The old woman's mouth moved. Then she went to her knees beside Gaara and put both hands over his heart and started the transfer. And Sakura tried to stop her, and Chiyo told her to be silent and useful. And Sakura Haruno, to her enormous credit, put her own hands over the old woman's and fed her chakra into it so that it would take. It took. Gaara of the desert breathed in on the floor of a cave in the land of rivers, and Chiyo's hands slid off his chest. And she was gone before she finished settling. Gaara opened his eyes to a ceiling of granite and a boy sitting beside him with gold eyes. You, he said. Get up. Your village came a long way. Gaara got a hand under himself and found that his skin was his own. All of it, with nothing under it. 12 years of a voice, and then 2 years of the voice pulled back and terrified. And now the space where it had lived was empty and stayed empty, and he put his palm flat on his own stomach and left it there. It's gone, he said. Yes. There's nothing in me. Naruto stood and reached down and pulled the Kazekage of Tsunagakure up onto his feet by the wrist. The beast is gone, he said. What's left is you. That was always the part worth keeping. Gaara's face did something that his own siblings had never seen it do. Tamari, at the mouth of the chamber, put her hand over her mouth and turned away. The sand delegation carried Chiyo home on a litter, and Gaara walked out of that cave under his own power with 400 sand shinobi waiting in the gully to see it. And when the roar went up, he looked at it like a man looking at weather. They found the mark on the shelf above the cave mouth on the way out. Someone had burned it into the granite, a spiral inside a flame, 8 inches across, edges still warm. Nobody in Tsunagakure could agree on how to feel about that. A clan with no village and no Kage had tracked the Akatsuki across 2 countries, arrived a day before 5 nations combined intelligence, and killed 2 members of the most dangerous organization in the world on the way to a rescue. Nobody asked them to run. Half the Sand Council wanted a treaty. The other half wanted to know how a private clan had beaten their intelligence division to a location inside their own sphere, and what that said about their intelligence division. Gaara ended the argument in one session. He had the mark on the granite copied onto paper and hung in the Kazekage's office where visitors could see it. And when the elders objected, he said 11 words. They came for me. You held a meeting. It stays up. Naruto was already gone. He went home the long way and got to the valley at dawn and put in 3 hours on the training ground before anyone else was awake. And when Tobei asked for a report, he gave 1 sentence. 2 of them are down. 8 left. Start reading their paper again. 2 seasons later, Orochimaru of the Sannin reached for Sasuke Uchiha's body and got eaten. Here is what happened in that chamber. And it happened without a single Konoha shinobi in the building. Orochimaru's arms had been sealed by a dying old man on a rooftop. Everything he had built since then had been built one-handed and on borrowed time, and under his ribs there was a hole with fire in it that had been burning for 2 years and had eaten past the place where his ambition used to sit. He needed a body, and he needed it soon, and he made the transfer 9 months early because he could feel his own foundation going. Sasuke let him start. That was the part Orochimaru understood 1 second too late. The curse mark had been feeding on the snake's chakra for 2 years, and Sasuke had been feeding on the curse mark. And when Orochimaru's consciousness came out of its shell and reached, Sasuke Uchiha opened his hand and closed it. The transfer went backward. Every technique, Every stolen jutsu, every scrap of the Sanin's chakra came down the pipe into a 17-year-old with an Uchiha's will and a 2-year grudge against being anybody's vessel, and the white snake body came apart on the floor of its own ritual chamber. The Sound Village lost its anchor in about 90 seconds. By the following morning, there were 4 factions in the compound, 2 of them shooting at each other. The Shirai Ryu moved on it 4 days later, and they did not move on it for Sasuke. "There's an archive under the north wing," Naruto said in the hall, with a map on the table and 11 of his seniors around it. Orochimaru kept files on every black operation in 5 countries for 40 years. Human experiments, buyers, which noble houses sent him children and what they wanted for them, names. "And we want it because," said Mishi, "because everyone in that archive is currently walking around thinking their file died with the snake." Naruto put a finger on the map. "Tobei, you take the east stair. Michi, the ventilation gallery. You'll find their sensor line strung through it and you'll cut it. Jinzo, main corridor with me. We're in and out in 20 minutes and we take paper, not prisoners. Anyone who kneels lives." Jinzo, who was 6'4" and had been a root operative for 19 years before a boy walked past him in a corridor and told him to stay down, cracked his knuckles once. "And the Uchiha?" "He'll be there," Naruto said. "He isn't the mission." They went in at the 3rd hour after midnight, 4 of them, and I want to give you the East Stair, because the East Stair is the reason the Shirai Ryu's 2nd year is taught in 3 villages' academies now. 14 Soundnin held it. Real ones. Orochimaru's line troops were not bandits. They were augmented and drilled, and 11 of them had modifications that would have made a Konoha medic sit down. They held a stairwell 4 flights deep with a kill zone at every landing. Tobei took it alone in under 3 minutes with a rope dart and a knife. He did it by sound. He had taken the name of a blind man on purpose. He came down that stairwell in the unlit, in a place with no light at all, because he had cut the lamps first, and he moved by the noise of their breathing and their weight shifts, and the rope dart came out of the black at angles that a stairwell should not permit. The 2 who survived it were the 2 who dropped their weapons when they heard a voice above them say, "Kneel and you keep your name." In the main corridor, Jinzo walked into a squad of 6 and put 4 of them through a stone wall. He was not fast. That was the point. Naruto had looked at a 19-year root veteran built like a granary and had taught him the parts of the Shirai Ryu that had come off a mountain and not out of a pit. The low forms, the elbow work, the thing you do with a man's wrist when he is committed. Jinzo went through those 6 the way a wagon goes through a fence, and when the 5th one got a blade into his shoulder, he took the blade with him and kept walking, and the 6th one put his sword on the floor and lay down without being asked. Mishi cut the sensor line in the gallery, and then she found their reinforcement barracks and sealed both exits and put a note on the door that said, "Stay in there and live." And 41 Sound 9 did exactly that, and every single one of them later swore under oath that it was tactical. 22 minutes, 4 operators, 11 dead on the Sound side, all of them holding weapons at the time, and the entire archive of the North Wing sitting in 11 sealed scrolls in the bottom of Mishi's pack. And in the ruin of the transfer chamber, Naruto Uzumaki met Sasuke Uchiha for the first time in 2 years. Sasuke was standing in the middle of it with his shirt open, and the curse seal spread across half his body in black spirals. And there was something moving under his skin that was neither his own chakra nor the marks. His eyes were red with 3 blades in them, and the whites had gone the color of an old bruise. He had grown 5 inches. He held a sword the way a man holds a thing he has used every day for 2 years. He looked at Naruto, and something in his shoulders changed, and it was almost relief, which tells you what those 2 years had been. "You came," Sasuke said. "I came for the paper under this building. Don't. There's an archive in the North Wing with 40 years of names in it," Naruto said. "My people are carrying it out right now. That's why I'm here. That's all of why I'm here." He looked at the wreck of the white snake body on the floor. "You solved your own snake problem. Good." Sasuke's jaw set. "I'm not here for you, Uchiha," Naruto said. "You made your choice. I told Tsunade what happens when a man seeks snakes. I meant it." 2 years, Sasuke said. 2 years in a hole under a rock with that thing breathing on my neck. And I did it because there was nothing in Konoha that could make me stronger. And there was one thing in Konoha stronger than me, and it wouldn't fight. He came off the wall. You put me on my back when I was 10 with 3 fingers on me to grow strong enough to matter. I grew. Look at me and tell me it worked. It worked. Then fight me. The archive is behind you, Naruto said. Move. Sasuke Uchiha did not move. There is a version of this where Naruto walks around him. I want you to understand that version existed, and that it closed when Sasuke put his hand on his sword, because the Shirai Ryu Code has a line in it about men who choose, and a man standing between you and 40 years of stolen children with a blade in his hand has chosen. Wrong choice, Naruto said, and pulled his mask down. The flesh went off his face, and the transfer chamber filled with gold light, and the black stone of Orochimaru's altar cracked along its top from the heat. And Sasuke Uchiha looked at a burning skull from 12 feet away and did the bravest thing he ever did, which was to attack it. He was good. Let me say that properly, because it matters. Sasuke Uchiha at 17, with the curse mark and 2 years of the Sanin's library and in Uchiha's eyes, was the strongest man under 30 in the elemental nations who was not currently in a black cloak. He opened with Chidori, and the sound of 1,000 birds filled that chamber, and the lightning threw his own shadow 40 feet up the wall. He hit nothing. There was a burst of yellow fire and a burned outline of a boy, and the Chidori went into a stone pillar and blew the top off it. He went to the second stage of the mark. The wings came out of his back, and his skin went gray, and his output tripled, and the chamber temperature dropped where he stood, because that is what the mark's chakra did to air. And he came at Naruto from 3 angles in 2 seconds using the Uchiha interception style with the mark speed on top of it. He landed 11 strikes. I want that on the record too. 11 clean hits on the Grandmaster of the Shirai Ryu, which is more than Kasame got, more than Itachi got, more than the entire root complex managed in one night. Sasuke Uchiha put 11 hits on him, and each one landed on a body that had spent 2 years training on a plane of black glass against things that do not tire, and each one landed and did nothing at all. And by the 8th one, Sasuke's breathing had changed. Naruto let him have the 11. Then he stopped letting him. He caught the sword arm on the 12th, and there was no exchange after that. He turned the wrist over, took Sasuke off his feet with a leg that was wreathed in yellow, and put him through the altar. Then the chain came off his forearm. Sasuke got up. He always gets up, and that is his single best quality. Amaterasu. He started because he had been building toward the Mangekyo for 2 years and had almost gotten there. You don't have it yet. Sasuke's last attempt was the best thing he had. He put everything left in the mark and everything he had taken out of Orochimaru into one strike, a Chidori spear 11 feet long that lit the whole chamber white, and he came down the length of that chamber screaming with it, and it was the finest technique any Uchiha under 20 had ever produced. Naruto put his bare hand into it. The lightning went into his palm and up his arm and found a chakra network with a second system threaded through it that was on fire, and the fire ran back down the spear the way water runs down a gutter. The Chidori went white, then gold, then wrong. It came apart in Sasuke's hand, and the backlash lifted him off the floor. You chose this. Naruto hit him. Once, open-handed, in the chest, with nothing in it but the heel of a hand and 40 pounds of weight behind it. The same strike he had put on Neji Hyuga in an arena 5 years earlier. And Sasuke Uchiha traveled the length of Orochimaru's transfer chamber and hit the far wall, and came down on his face and stayed there. And the mark on his shoulder screamed. That is the part nobody predicted. Sasuke had eaten Orochimaru, but eating is not the same as digesting, and there was still a piece of the snake Sanin in that curse seal, a scrap of consciousness folded into the mark's design, waiting, patient, the way it had waited in 11 other hosts. The hellfire had gone into the boy's chakra network with the backlash, and the hellfire had found it. Orochimaru of the Sanin came up out of Sasuke Uchiha's shoulder as a white shape the size of a man's arm, half-formed, mouth open, and there was fire inside it. Wait, it said in a voice like a kettle. Wait, you boy, I can give you. There are things in my archive you cannot read. There are seals. I can give you your clan. I can give you the dead. You harvest bodies, Naruto said. I told you 2 years ago there was a room set aside for you. You've been late. Please, your pain ends when I say it ends. He closed his hand around it. The last living fragment of Orochimaru burned in a 14-year-old's fist for 11 full seconds, and it screamed for all 11 of them. And there was nothing merciful about it, and nothing personal in it either. The immortality project of a man who had spent 40 years building doors out of death ended on the floor of his own laboratory, in a hand, and what fell out of that hand when it opened was gray ash and lighter than a bundle of sticks. The curse mark on Sasuke Uchiha's shoulder went white and then faded to nothing at all, and it never came back. Sasuke got a knee under himself and one hand on the wall and looked at his own bare shoulder. What did you? I took a tenant out of your house. Naruto's mask went back up as the flesh crawled over the bone. You'd have spent your whole life fighting that thing for the driver's seat. Now you won't. Consider us square for the 11 you landed. He turned to go. Naruto. Naruto stopped. Itachi, Sasuke said. His voice was in pieces. Do you know where he is? He's dying, Naruto said. His eyes are going, and there's blood in his lungs, and he has months, and he wants you to be the one who does it, and he wants it that way for a reason you're going to hate. Now he looked back over his shoulder. There's a scroll in the archive we're taking out of here tonight. Second tier, Black Seal, Konoha Internal, dated 11 years ago. It has your father's name in it, and the name of the man who signed the order, and the man who signed it is in hell, and I put him there myself 2 years ago. He walked to the door. When you're done reading it, you'll want to kill somebody, and there won't be anybody left. That's the part nobody warns you about. He left Sasuke Uchiha standing in the ruins of the sound with his shoulder cleaned for the first time in 2 years. He also left the scroll. On the floor, 6 feet from the door, where a man on his knees would find it, Itachi Uchiha came for him 11 days later on the road north of the valley with his second plan. And I promised you, it worked worse than the first. It was almost full night. Naruto had come down out of the hills alone with a bundle of forge iron on his shoulder, and he stopped in the middle of the road because there was a crow on the branch above him that had been there for a mile. Sit down, Naruto said. You sound like a man with a hole in him. Itachi stepped out of the tree line. He was thinner than he had been on the ridge, and the left eye had gone milky at the rim, and there was a black stain on his sleeve where he had wiped his mouth. You know what I've come to do. You've come to seal me, Naruto said. You went back into your clan's records and you found the one thing in the world built for a target like me, and you brought it. That's good work. You're the first person to solve the actual problem. Itachi's face did nothing, but the crow left the branch. Susanoo. It came up around him like a house being built out of red glass, a giant of ribs and light 40 feet tall with a face like a war mask, and in its right hand a sword whose blade was a sealed gourd of liquid that has no counterpart in this world. The sword of Totsuka. It does not cut. It touches you, and it puts your soul in a jar full of a pleasant dream forever, and it had never once failed against anything with a soul in it. The sword of Totsuka went into Naruto Uzumaki's chest. It went all the way through. Itachi felt it take. The pull began, that gentle, irresistible drawing in, and for about 1.5 seconds, Itachi Uchiha had won. Then the pull stopped because something in there was pulling back. I want to describe this the way Itachi described it in the only conversation he ever had about it. He said the blade found a plane. He said there was black glass under a sky the color of a coal bed, and a man sitting on the glass with his hands on his knees, and 41 people standing behind the man in a line, and the man looked up at the ceiling sword the way you look up at a housefly. Then the plane caught fire. The Totsuka blade came apart from the tip backward. The gourd jar at its hilt boiled and split. Susanoo's right arm went to pieces and the fire ran up the inside of the construct, which should have been impossible because Susanoo is not made of anything a fire can hold. And the hellfire went past the chakra the way it had gone past Danzo's arm. and Suzanu's ribs blew outward in 40 pieces of burning red glass that lit the road for 100 yards. Itachi Uchiha went down on both knees with blood coming out of his nose and both eyes in his mouth. Naruto Uzumaki walked over and stood in front of him with a hole through his shirt and a chest that was already closed. "That was your best one," he said. "It was better than the first." Itachi laughed, and the laugh turned into the cough, and the cough went on for a long time and put a lot of red in the dust. "Then finish it." "No, I have raised arms against you twice." Itachi wiped his mouth on his wrist and looked up. "Your code is well known. You kill the ones who choose." "I read the file," Naruto said. Itachi Uchiha went completely still. Second tier, black seal, dated 11 years ago. Danzo Shimura's signature and Hiruzen Sarutobi's hand note in the margin saying there must be another way, and then nothing under it, because there wasn't another way, and he let it happen. Naruto crouched down in front of him so they were level. A 13-year-old was given a choice between his clan and his village, and a little brother, and he was given it by 3 old men who had already decided, and he took the worst road in it and paid the whole bill himself for 11 years. He let that sit. "You fought well. That is the only reason you get a warning. Walk away." Itachi's hands were shaking. They had not shaken in 11 years, and he looked at them like they belonged to somebody else. "Sasuke has the file," Naruto said. "He read it 4 days ago. He's coming north. Heal." Itachi's breath went out of him. "He has to kill me. That was the whole design. He has to kill the man who..." "Then let him try and lose on purpose and lie to him with your last breath if that's what you've decided you're worth." Naruto stood up. "Or tell him the truth and let him hate the right people. He's 17. He's got 1,100 bad ideas in him and one good one, and the good one is that he wants his brother to have been a person. Give him that." The wind came down the road. "Danzo Shimura," Itachi said. "You said he's in?" "He's in the fire and he'll stay in the fire, and the fire has a very long memory," Naruto said. "You can stop carrying that one. It's paid." Itachi Uchiha put his face in both hands on a road 11 miles from Konoha and wept once, hard, for about 4 seconds, the way a man does when the thing he has been holding up for 11 years is taken off him without warning. Then he stood and bowed, properly, from the waist, the way you bow to a grandmaster, and went north. He met Sasuke 6 days later in a rain-soaked hideout in Rice Country, and he told him everything. And then his body finished what it had been doing for 2 years, and he died sitting against a wall with his hand on his brother's head. Kisame Hoshigaki, waiting outside in the rain, listened to the whole thing through a wall. He walked away from the Akatsuki that night. He went south and west, and he was never confirmed dead. And there is a swordsman in the land of waves now with blue-gray skin who runs a ferry and does not answer questions. And the Shirairyu know about him and have decided he is somebody else's problem. Sasuke Uchiha buried his brother himself, and then he sat by the grave for 11 days. And when he got up, he went looking for the men who had signed the order, and found that every single one of them was already dead or already in hell. That is what Naruto had warned him about. There is nothing in the world lonelier than a completed revenge you had nothing to do with. And then pain came to Konoha. It happened on a morning in the 9th month, and it happened the way weather happens. The first body came down in the middle of the eastern market with a rippled purple stare and its hands at its sides, and 11 seconds later, the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth arrived on 6 different vectors, and inside 4 minutes the village hidden in the leaves was under the most complete assault it had suffered since the night the Nine Tails walked through the wall. Konoha's response was what you would expect from a village with 1,000 shinobi and a good alarm system, and it was overwhelmed inside 9 minutes because the 6 paths of pain were not a raid. Each body was Kage level. One of them summoned. One of them absorbed every technique thrown at it. One of them read minds. One of them could not be killed because none of them could be killed, because every time a path went down, the animal path put it back. The Shirairyu did not wait for orders. That is the sentence that has been argued about in 3 countries for 20 years, and I am going to lay it out plainly. The clan had a standing watch on the Konoha approaches because Naruto had put one there after the ridge and never taken it off. Tobei's post read 6 signatures entering the village at once and put the horn up before the market stall. The first path landed on had finished falling over. 58 people came down out of the hill country in yellow and black at a dead run, and the 11 miles took them 19 minutes, and they arrived while Konoha's Jonin Corps was still trying to get a coherent report to the tower. They did not fight the paths. That was the order, and it was given from the front of a running column, and it was the right one. Sectors, Naruto said. Tobei, the Eastern Residential, 3,000 civilians. Shelters are under the old granary. Michi, hospital. They'll go for the hospital because everything goes for the hospital. Genzo, the academy, 400 children in that building, and their evacuation route runs through open ground. The rest of you split off them in 3s. He was already ahead of the column. You do not engage the 6. You move people. If one of the 6 comes into your sector, you fall back and you send a runner and I will come. Say it back to me. 58 voices said it back. Then go. Here is what 58 people trained by a specter did to a catastrophe. Genzo reached the academy 9 minutes before the Asura path came through the eastern wall of it. He got 211 children out through a route he had walked with his own feet 11 times in the previous year, because Naruto Uzumaki had made every one of his people walk the evacuation routes of a village they had no obligation to defend. When the Asura path arrived and opened its chest into a weapons array, Genzo did not engage it. He put a wall in front of it, an actual wall, a stone wall, because he had been a mason's son before Root took him at 4, and Naruto had put him back in touch with that. And he collapsed a granary onto the street to make the path spend 90 seconds walking around it, and 90 seconds was the whole margin. Michi held the hospital corridor with 6 of hers against the human path, and a company of summoned centipedes, and she gave up the ground floor and held the stairwell and never once let anything past her onto the second, and she took a puncture through the thigh doing it and finished her shift, standing on one leg with a rope dart in each hand. Suzume, who was 10 years old and had named herself after a sparrow on a vent grate, carried a woman with 2 broken legs 400 yards on her back and went back in for the woman's mother. 12. The stubborn boy who had kept his number pulled 11 people out of a collapsed tenement in the western quarter over the course of 2 hours with his hands and a length of rope, working under a floor slab that was moving. And the last one he brought out was a man of 60 who had once thrown a stone at a boy in an orange shirt outside a fruit stall. He did not know that. The man did. The man recognized the mark on the boy's collar, the spiral inside the flame, and he lay in the street and wept about it. And 12 told him to hold pressure on his own arm and move to the next building. The Shirai Ryu did not save Konoha that day. Nobody saved Konoha that day. The village lost 411 people and about a third of its structures. And there is a garden where the Eastern Market used to be because they never rebuilt it. But 3,000 civilians got out of the Eastern Residential, and 211 children got out of the academy. And the hospital's second floor never fell. And the count that day was 411 instead of the 4,000 it should have been. And every single one of those numbers was purchased by a clan that owed the village nothing at all. Naruto Uzumaki went straight up the middle at the Deva path. He found it standing on the roof of the Hokage's tower, which is where it had gone, because the Deva path always goes to the tallest thing and looks down. Tsunade Senju was in the courtyard below with Katsuyu across half the village and her own life running out of her by the second to keep people breathing. The path turned around. "You are the vessel," it said. Nagato's voice through a corpse's throat, flat as a stone. "You will be brought to me. Whether the village stands is a matter of your cooperation." "Hell is already here," Naruto said. "I brought it with me." He pulled his mask down. The skull lit, and the light went up off the tower roof in a column that people saw from the northern wall. And every single Konoha shinobi still standing in that village looked up at the same time and knew who it was. In a rubble field in the eastern quarter, a 19-year-old Hyuga named Hinata, who had spent the last 2 hours pulling people out of a bakery, sat down on a broken beam with her hands over her mouth. 2 blocks over, Yugao Uzuki put her Anbu mask back on and went hunting with a purpose she had not had in years. The Netherrealm was patient, Naruto said. I am not. Then he threw the chain at a god. Kunai chain. Shinra Tensei, I have been putting off this paragraph. Here is the problem. Almighty Push is a repulsion of everything within a radius: air, stone, water, chakra, people. And it had never failed in any documented instance to move anything that was moving toward Nagato. The hellfire chain is 40 feet of black iron out of a country that does not exist, thrown by a body with the 9 tails chakra behind it, and running on a fire that operates 1 floor beneath the level where physics files its paperwork. Those 2 things met 11 feet from the Devapath's chest, and both of them were correct, and the roof of the Hokage's tower ceased to exist. The push went out, and the chain went in, and for about 2 full seconds, neither one gave ground, and the pressure between them did the arguing. The tower's top 3 floors came off in a ring, the tiles went up in a spiral, and a shockwave went out over the village and blew out every remaining window inside a quarter mile. The kunai at the end of the chain hung in midair, 12 feet, then 11, then 10, grinding forward into the field like a nail being driven into stone. The Devapath's eyes widened, which is a thing those bodies were not supposed to do. Then the chain got through. It went in under the collarbone and out the back, and Naruto put his hip into the pull, and the god came off the tower. Come here! The Devapath crossed 60 feet of open air with a chain through it, and Naruto met it in the middle with a knee full of hellfire, and the corpse bent around it, and the yellow went into the black rods along its spine and up with them, and into the network of chakra that was piloting it from 4 miles away. Nagato, in a chair in a paper tower, felt his own soul get burned through a receiver. He screamed. The animal path, standing in the middle of the northern district, dropped what it was doing and screamed with him, because they were all the same man. He also learned. That is the thing about Nagato. He was, at that point, arguably the most adaptable fighter alive. He pulled the Devapath back with a 5-second gravity reversal, put the Predapath in front of it to absorb, and rebuilt his formation in 11 seconds with all 6 bodies converging on one rooftop, which is a thing he had done exactly once before in his career, and had never needed to do twice. 6 paths of pain, all together, in a line, on the roof of the Konoha Academy. Naruto Uzumaki looked at them from the water tower opposite and reached up over his shoulders. Hellfire blades. The fire came out of his palms and lengthened into 2 ninjato, 3 feet each, yellow-white at the edge and howling low, and the tin of the water tower under his feet went orange in a ring. Your master sent you to die, he said. Except your master is you, and you sent yourself 6 times, and now you have 1 less body every 11 seconds. Count them down with me. Here is how the 6 paths ended, and I will be brief because it was brief. The Predapath came first because absorption is a shield, and it put both hands out to eat the fire. Hellfire is not chakra. The Predapath took it into a body designed to consume ninjutsu, and there was nowhere for it to go, and it went into the frame instead, and the Predapath came apart into gray ash from the inside out in under 2 seconds and never touched him. The animal path summoned, the multi-headed dog, the drilling bird, the ox, all of it at once. And Naruto went straight through the summons rather than around. And the summons went the way the serpents in the northern district had gone 2 years earlier, because he burned the contracts and not the animals. And the whole menagerie came apart into ash in mid-leap. Then he took the animal path's head off with a blade in each hand, crossing, and the moment it fell, the resurrection stopped being available, and every corpse on that rooftop became a thing that could stay dead. The human path put its palm on his forehead to pull his soul out through his skull. I want to give this one its own line because it is the funniest thing that happened during the worst day in Konoha's history. The human path reached into a mind with 2 souls in it, one of which was 400 years old and had been reaching into other people's souls professionally since before the hidden villages existed, and Hanzo Hasashi took hold of the intruding hand from the inside and pulled. The human path's arm came off at the shoulder. Then the rest of it followed, and there is no chakra explanation for what happened to it after that. The Asura path opened its entire chest into a missile array at 4 feet of range. Netherrealm step. Naruto was behind it. The blades went in low and crossed, and the Asura path lit up from the inside, the way Baki of the Sand had lit up in a training yard 2 years before, and it came apart in 100 pieces of machinery and burning meat that rained across 4 rooftops. The Naraka path ran. It ran because Nagato was down to 2 bodies, and one of them was the Deva path. And the Deva path was the one that mattered, and he made the professional decision. Run, Naruto said. I want you to. There was a burst of yellow fire on the roof and a burned outline of a man. And Naruto Uzumaki came out of the air on the far side of the next building, standing in the Naraka path's line. And he did not say anything else at all. The chain went out. The pull came in. The chain has never missed, and it did not miss then, which left the Deva path standing alone on the academy roof with a chain through its shoulder and 5 bodies dead in a ring around it. And 4 miles north, in a paper tower with rods in his back and a machine holding his spine up, Nagato of the Uzumaki began to understand the size of his mistake. Chibaku Tensei. That is the last card. It is a black sphere thrown into the sky that pulls the world up into itself, and it makes a moon, and it had never been used inside a village because Nagato had never needed it inside a village. The sphere went up over Konoha and the ground started to leave. Whole streets came off. 10,000 tons of stone and roof tile and broken timber lifted off the earth and went up in a slow spiral toward a black point 400 feet in the air. And people who had survived the whole morning looked up and understood that the morning had one more thing in it. Naruto Uzumaki went up with the debris because that was faster. He rode a slab of the eastern wall up 200 feet, walked off the edge of it, and stepped out of a burst of yellow fire 11 feet from the black core. He put his hand into it. Netherrealm portal. The air tore next to the sphere, 8 feet vertical, and the light that came out of it was orange and red and moving, and there was a landscape inside it, and the debris that had been going up went sideways instead. 10,000 tons of Konoha poured through a hole in the world into a plane of black glass under a coal-colored sky and stopped being anybody's problem. And the black core, cut off from its mass, went out like a lamp. The tear sealed. Naruto came down 400 feet and landed in the street in front of the academy with his knees taking all of it. And there is an 11-foot crater in the road outside the Konoha Academy that they never filled in. And there is a plaque. The Deva path was on its knees on the roof. It had nothing left. Nagato had spent his entire chakra on the Tsukuyomi's smaller cousin, and the recharge on Shinra Tensei was 5 seconds, and he did not have 5 seconds, and the body knelt there with its purple eyes wide and its hands open. Naruto walked up the wall of the academy to reach it. He put one hand on the Deva path's head, and the fire went in, and the last of the 6 went gray from the inside and folded over sideways and was still. Then he went north alone 4 miles and found the paper tower. Conan met him at the door. She was standing in the entry with a sheet of paper in each hand, and she had been crying for an hour, and she made the choice that saved her life. "He's dying," she said. "He was dying before you came. Please." "Move aside and stay outside," Naruto said. "You held a door for a friend. That's the only reason today ends differently for you." She moved aside. Nagato of the Uzumaki sat in a black machine at the center of a room with rods coming out of his back and legs that had stopped working when he was a boy. And he was so thin that the machine looked like it was holding up laundry. His hair was red. His eyes were rippled purple, and they had been Madara Uchiha's before they were his, and they were the only living-looking thing in the room. He looked at the 14-year-old boy in the doorway with the chain hanging off his forearm. "Uzumaki," he said, "your hair should be red." "My mother's was." "Ah." Nagato's mouth moved. "Then we are cousins in a way that no longer matters." He coughed. There was blood on his chin already and had been for a while. "You destroyed all 6. Nobody has ever destroyed all 6. You put a village in the ground this morning. I put a lesson in the ground." Nagato's hands twitched on the arms of the machine. "You are young. You have no idea what it is to be from a country that the great villages use as a floor. I watched my father and mother die on our own kitchen boards, killed by leaf shinobi who apologized after. I watched my friend put a rod through his own chest to buy me 11 seconds. Rain has been a battlefield for other people's wars for 100 years, and nobody in Konoha could name one of our dead. His voice climbed and cracked. So I gave them pain. Real pain in their own streets, the kind we have every year. Now they know, shared pain is the only thing that has ever made men stop. That is the road to peace, and there is no other one. And I have walked it with my legs eaten out from under me, and I would walk it again. Naruto Uzumaki stood in that doorway and let the whole thing finish. I know exactly what it is, he said. I'm from a place with no name on any map. It's called the Ditch. There were 41 people in it, and every one of them was thrown out by the same village you burned this morning. And the village killed all 41 of them in 1 hour when I was 7 years old, because one of its old men decided their loyalty was an unaudited resource. His voice went lower. I put my hand on a stonemason's shoulder, and it was already cooling. I carried a 5-year-old out of a fire and went back in for the next one. I know what your kitchen boards look like. Do not sit in that chair and explain grief to me. Nagato said nothing. So here is where you and I part, Naruto said. You turned grief into a weapon and aimed it at people who did nothing to earn it. I know what loss is. Mine does not get to be other people's problem. He came 2 steps into the room. There were 411 people in Konoha this morning who never signed a treaty, never gave an order, never heard of rain. A boy in the academy who had a rice ball in his hand. That's your lesson. That's what it's made of. Then what? Nagato said, and his voice broke on it. Was I supposed to do? Build, Naruto said. It's harder. That's the whole reason nobody does it. The wind came through the paper tower and rattled the sheets on the walls. I have a clan, Naruto said. 58 people. Every one of them was thrown away by somebody. Root cells, orphanages, mines, roadsides. Half of them are children who had numbers instead of names 2 years ago. This morning, they came down out of the hills into a village that never fed one of them. And they pulled 3,000 civilians out of your All Might bush, and 11 of them are in a hospital right now for a place that used to throw stones at me. He looked at the wasted man in the machine. That's a lesson too. It took 2 years instead of a morning. It doesn't burn anything down. Nobody will write a book about it. Nagato of the Uzumaki looked at the ceiling of his own tower for a long time. You will not kill me, he said. It was almost a question. You'll be dead in an hour, Naruto said. Your body's been failing since before I got here. I don't spend fire on men the world is already collecting. That is, Nagato laughed, and the laugh was terrible, and it had 40 years of exhaustion in it. That is worse. You know that it is worse. Yes. The rain came down on the paper tower. Nagato's breathing changed about 40 minutes later. Before it did, he asked one thing. Would you have taken me? He said. If I had come up your road instead of down theirs, 58 of you and the numbers and the names, would there have been a place in it for a cripple from rain? Yes, Naruto said. There'd have been a name on the wall for you and a rope dart in your hand, and Michi would have made you eat twice a day. Nagato Uzumaki closed his eyes and died in his chair in a paper tower in a country nobody names, and the last thing on his face was something that had not been there in 20 years. And Konan came in and sat with him and did not look up when the boy left. She took the body home to Amegakure. She became the leader there, and Amegakure has been a functioning independent state for 20 years now. And once a year, a shipment of medical supplies leaves Rain and goes to a valley in the Fire Country Hill Country with no invoice attached. And the Shirai-ryu never send it back. Konoha buried its dead for 11 days. Tsunade Senju called Naruto to the tower on the 12th, and the tower had no top 3 floors. So they met in a tent in the courtyard with the smell of burning still on everything. She was in a chair. She had spent most of her own life force holding a slug net over half a village, and it had cost her about 11 years, and all of the jutsu that made her look 30. And there was gray in her hair now, and she did not bother hiding it. The room had Kakashi in it, and Shikamaru Nara, and 2 elders, and Homura Mitokado opened his mouth first. Before we begin, there is the matter of an unregistered armed force conducting operations inside the walls of a hidden village during a state of emergency without authorization. Without. Homura, Tsunade said, "Get out." Hokage, "Get out, or I will have Kakashi carry you out, and he'll do it because he's been waiting 11 days for somebody to ask him to." The tent emptied to 4. Tsunade Senju put both hands flat on the table and looked at a 14-year-old with a chain on his arm. 3,104, she said. "That's the number of my civilians your clan moved out of sectors that got flattened. My own count of the dead is 411, and my Jonin commander tells me that without the yellow and black in the Eastern Residential and the Academy, it would have been north of 4,000. She let out a breath. "So the first thing that happens in this tent is that the Hokage of Konohagakure says thank you and means it and does not qualify it. Accepted. The second thing that happens is the part I hate." She sat back. "You understand my position. An armed clan I do not command, with better intelligence than my own division, moved a company-sized force inside my walls during an invasion and held ground my shinobi could not hold. Every ally I have and every enemy I have watched that happen. Iwa's ambassador asked me 11 questions about you in one meeting, and I could answer 2 of them." Her jaw set. "There are people on my council who are going to spend the next 10 years arguing that the Shirai Ryu is a second village inside Fire Country's borders, and they aren't wrong. They aren't wrong," Naruto agreed. "Don't do that. Don't agree with the thing I need you to argue with. You want me to say the clan is harmless. It isn't." Naruto put his hands on the back of a chair. "You want me to say it will fold into your command structure. It won't. You want me to promise it will never be a problem for Konoha, and I'll give you the only version of that promise that's worth anything." He leaned in. "The Shirai Ryu will never take a contract against this village. If Konoha is attacked, we come, and we come without being asked, and we don't invoice. In exchange, you will keep your registry off my people and your recruiters out of my valley. And when your council votes to send a team into my hills to count my beds, you will lose that vote. And if I don't lose it, then I'll come to the tower and read the names of my dead to your council," Naruto said. "All 41. Out loud, in order, with what each of them did for a boy this village left in an alley. It'll take 9 minutes. Then I'll leave, and nothing will happen, and every man in that room will have to go home and sit with it." His eyes had gone gold at the edges. "I don't need to threaten you, Tsunade. I've buried this village's mistakes twice. I'd rather build than burn. But you should understand that the road where the Shirai Ryu and Konoha come apart is a road I've already walked once with a chain in my hand, and there were 211 people in the corridor, and 11 of them are in my clan now." Kakashi Hatake, standing by the tent flap, said nothing whatsoever, and made a small note to himself to stop being surprised by this boy, and failed at it again within the year. Tsunade Senju looked at the table for a while. "Get out of my tent," she said. "Send Tobei down on the 3rd of the month. I'm putting a joint casualty response protocol in writing, and I want your name on it. And if you tell me the Shirai Ryu don't sign paper, I will throw this table." "We sign paper," Naruto said. "We just don't sign yours." He signed it on the 3rd of the month. It is 4 pages long, and it is the first document in the history of the elemental nations in which a Hokage and a clan grandmaster negotiated as equals. And it is in a case in the Konoha archive, and the second signature is a spiral inside a flame. 11 months later, the man calling himself Madara Uchiha stood in front of the 5 Kaji in a stone hall and told them he was declaring war on the world. The 4th Great Ninja War began 9 days after that, and it began with an army of 80,000 allied shinobi on one side and, on the other side, 100,000 white bodies with no minds in them, and the dead. That is the part nobody was ready for. Kabuto Yakushi, who had spent 2 years cutting himself open and stitching other people's cells into the wound, and who had made himself into a thing that even the Akatsuki found unsettling, had the impure world resurrection, and he had graves. He pulled the 7 swordsmen of the mist out of the ground. He pulled the 4 dead Kage. He pulled Deidara and Sasori and 11 other Akatsuki, and he pulled Hanzo of the salamander, and every one of them came up under a black rod with their own faces on and their own techniques intact and no ability to stop. The allied shinobi forces put out a general call. Every village, every clan, every free hand. Naruto Uzumaki took the call in the valley with 61 people in front of him, and he answered it in a way that got copied by hand and passed around 11 divisions before the week was out. "We're going," he said. "Understand the terms. The Shirai Ryu is not joining the allied shinobi forces. We have no Kage and no seat, and I do not take orders from a council of 5 men in a tent." He walked the line. "We will fight beside them. If a division commander asks for our help, we give it. If a division commander gives us an order that violates the code, we ignore it, and I will handle the conversation afterward. You take no contract against a civilian. You accept every surrender that is offered. Anyone in front of you who kneels, lives, even if he was killing your brother 11 seconds earlier, say it." 61 voices said it. "One more thing." He stopped at the end of the line. "There will be men on that field who have been dead for 30 years and did not ask to be standing up. You will show them respect. When you put them back down, you say their name first." "Grandmaster," said Suzume, who was 12 now and had a rope dart with 11 notches in the collar. "What if we don't know their name?" "Then ask them," Naruto said. "Most of them will be glad someone did." The Shirai Ryu fought in the 4th Great Ninja War as an independent formation of 61, and by the end of it, there were 311 confirmed Edo Tensei kills attributed to that formation. And the Allied Command's after-action report contains the following sentence, which the officer who wrote it never took back. "The yellow and black element held the eastern approach for 11 hours against a numerically superior undead force with 3 casualties and 0 fatalities, and I would like it on record that I have no idea how. Here is how in 3 pictures. Picture 1. The second night of the war. A wedge of 200 white Zetsu came up out of the ground under the 3rd Division's field hospital, which is what they always did, and they came up in the dead center of 1,100 wounded men. Mishi took them with 19 people and a fire break. She had them cut a ring in the earth 6 feet down, and Naruto walked it once with his palm out and turned the whole ring to glass, and the white Zetsu, who moved through soil the way fish move through water, hit that glass from underneath and could not get through it and had to surface in the open, and 19 rope darts went to work in a field of stumps. It took 40 minutes, 200 bodies, 1 broken arm on the Shirai Ryu side. Picture 2. Genzo and Hanzo of the Salamander. Understand what that means. Hanzo of the Salamander was the man who had named the Sannin, who had beaten all 3 of them in one afternoon, and Kabuto had him up under a rod with his poison sack and his kusarigama and his whole legend. He came into the eastern approach at the head of 11 other resurrected Jonin, and the allied line in front of him folded in 90 seconds. Genzo stepped out of the line and put his rope dart in the dirt point down, which is the Shirai Ryu's way of asking for a duel. Hanzo of the Salamander, whose mind was his own inside a body that was not, looked at him and started laughing. "A boy with a rope," he said. "You know what I am. I know what you were." Genzo, 6'4", 19 years of root and 2 years of a grandmaster. "I'm going to put you back in the ground, sir, and my grandmaster says I have to say your name first, so I'm saying it." Hanzo of the Salamander. "Whose student are you?" "Naruto Uzumaki, Shirai Ryu." "That name," Hanzo said. "That name I have heard in a place with no light in it from people who arrived there screaming." He shifted his stance and his eyes did something almost grateful. "Put me down properly, boy. I have been standing up for 11 days, and I would like to stop." It took Genzo 4 minutes, and it cost him a broken collarbone, and he did it with a rope dart and a headlock, and finished it by holding the resurrected body still while Michi burned the rod out, and Hanzo of the Salamander went to ash smiling, and the Iwa contingent watching from the ridge stood up without deciding to. Picture 3. Naruto and the 4 dead Kaj. They came at him together on the 4th day on a plain in the land of lightning, because Kabuto had watched him go through 11 of his best pieces and had decided to spend everything at once. The 2nd Mizukage, the 3rd Raikage, the fourth Kazekage and the second Tsuchikage, 4 men whose combined career total was 11 wars. The third Raikage, who was the strongest of them, ran him down and put the hell stab through his chest. It went through. It did nothing. The finger came out the far side of Naruto Uzumaki's ribs and the wound was closed before the arm was withdrawn. And the third Raikage, a man whose defense had never been pierced, whose entire legend was that he could not be stopped, looked into a mask and heard the flesh under it start to burn. "You fought well," Naruto said. "That is the only reason you get a warning. Walk away." "Boy," the Raikage said, "I would if I could. There's a rod in my spine. Then I'll take the rod." He did. He took all 4 rods in 11 minutes, and he did it while the 4 of them were using everything they had. And I'm not going to give you the choreography because it was 4 Kage and 1 boy on an open plain, and the plain is a lake now. The last one down was the 4th Kazekage, who fought with gold dust and who did not speak the entire time. And when the rod came out of him, he had about 4 seconds of being himself, and he spent them looking east toward the desert. "My son," he said. "Gaara, is he?" "He's Kazekage," Naruto said. "He's the best of the 5, and they all know it. He got there without you." The 4th Kazekage of Tsunagakure went to ash on an open plain with his mouth open, and Naruto Uzumaki stood in a field of gold dust with 4 cloaks settling around his feet, and 11,000 allied shinobi watching from a ridge 2 miles off made a sound that got recorded in 3 separate journals as like a wave hitting a wall. Kabuto Yakushi lasted 11 more hours. They found his hide in a cave under the ruins of the Uzumaki compound in Whirlpool because Tobei had spent 4 days doing nothing but listening to the ground. Naruto went in alone and came out alone, and the only account of what happened in there is 1 sentence Kabuto managed to get out before the end, which Tobei heard from the mouth of the cave and wrote down. "I only wanted to be someone." "You were," Naruto said. "You were a man who healed people in an orphanage, and then you chose 11 times, and every choice was smaller than the last." The chain rattled in the black. "Your pain ends when I say it ends." Every Edo Tensei on every front dropped inside the same minute. 80,000 allied shinobi watched the dead go to ash at once, and half of them fell over. And then the man in the orange mask took his mask off, and there were 2 of them. The younger one was Obito Uchiha, who was supposed to have died under a rock at 13, and the older one was Madara Uchiha, who had actually died and who Kabuto had pulled back out of the ground with a body that got more finished every hour. Obito did the talking. Obito always did the talking. He stood on the head of the 10 Tails first form with a Rinnegan in 1 socket and the whole plan running on time. And he looked down at 80,000 people and told them what was coming. The infinite Tsukuyomi, 1 eye on the moon, and every mind in the world folded into a dream that never ends, and no more war, and no more grief, and no more anything. "There's nothing to fight for," Obito said. "This world had its chance. I'm ending it and putting a better one in its place, and there is nothing any of you can do that has ever worked." "Hell is already here," Naruto said from the front of the allied line. "I brought it with me." He had said the same thing to a corpse on a tower roof 11 months earlier. This time, 80,000 people heard it. And the sound of it going down that line is the reason that phrase is carved over the gate of the Shirai Ryu Valley today. Obito Uchiha's fight lasted 6 minutes. He had every advantage. Intangibility. He could let anything pass through him and had built his whole life around it. Kamui, he could put a hand on you and take you into a pocket of another space and leave you there. A Rinnegan, the 10 tails on a chain. And every single one of those things operates on chakra, and chakra was the part that had stopped mattering. He went intangible, and Naruto walked into him, and the hellfire went into him anyway, because the fire does not travel through the part of a man that phases. He opened Kamui, and Naruto opened a Netherrealm portal into the middle of it, and the 2 spaces argued, and Obito's pocket dimension came out the loser. There is a crack in Kamui's world now, and it glows orange, and it is on no map. He put a hand on Naruto's shoulder to take him away and got a wrist taken instead. "You will not walk away from this," Naruto said, and pulled him off the 10-tailed skull by the arm. "I was 13, Obito said in midair, and it was the truest thing he ever said. I was 13 and she died in front of me and the world just kept. I was 7. The chain went around him. I was 7 and there were 41 of them, and I carried a 5-year-old out of a fire and went back in, Naruto said. You had 40 years to become something. You became a mask for a corpse. He set his feet. I told you what would happen. He went through the 10 Tails host with 2 hellfire blades, and the fire went up the chakra chain that connected Obito Uchiha to the beast on the other end of it, and it burned the connection out on both sides. The 10 Tails' first form came apart into 10 separate screaming chakra masses that scattered to the 4 horizons and became somebody else's problem for a decade. Obito Uchiha came down on a rock with a hole through him where his will used to be. He was still breathing when Madara Uchiha stepped over him. You were always a tool, Madara said without looking down. The good ones break in the middle. Then he took the Rinnegan out of Obito's socket with 2 fingers and put it into his own, and the man who had fought the first Hokage to a draw in a river valley 80 years earlier stood up on a battlefield in a body that was finally finished and rolled his shoulders and looked at the 80,000. So, Madara Uchiha said, which of you is the fire? Naruto Uzumaki walked out of the allied line. He walked out alone, and he kept walking until there were 400 yards between him and the nearest friendly face, because he had learned in a valley in the hill country that the first duty of a grandmaster is to move his people out of the blast radius. Behind him, 61 people in yellow and black stood in a line and did not follow, because he had told them not to, and it was the hardest order any of them ever obeyed. He reached up and pulled his mask down. The flesh went off his face and the whole plain went gold, and every shadow on that battlefield ran the same direction at once, and 80,000 people saw the burning skull of the Shirai Ryu's grandmaster for the first and last time. And there are 11,000 paintings of that moment, and every one of them gets the fire wrong, because the fire curled up and back like it hated the air. Madara Uchiha smiled the way a man smiles when he has been bored for 80 years. Ah, he said. Then they went to work, and I'm going to give you all of it, because it was the largest thing that ever happened on the surface of this world. Madara opened with perfect Susanoo. The construct came up around him in armor and light, and I want you to have the scale honestly. The thing was 600 feet tall. It had 4 arms and 4 swords, and a face like a war mask carved out of a mountain, and when it stood up, its shoulders were level with a low cloud, and the wind of it flattened the grass for a mile in every direction, and knocked 11,000 allied shinobi off their feet. Naruto Uzumaki threw a chain at it. Kunai chain. The chain crossed 600 feet. The range should not exist, and it did. And the kunai went into the joint of Susanoo's left elbow and stuck, and the yellow fire came up the links, and perfect Susanoo's own arm caught fire. Madara stopped smiling. Chakra constructs do not burn. That is the entire premise of a chakra construct. They break, they get overpowered, they can be dispelled. They do not burn because there is nothing in them to burn. The arm burned. It burned from the inside, the way Hiruko had burned, the way Izanagi had failed to save a bandaged old man in a round room with 1 lamp, and the fire ran up into the shoulder, and Madara Uchiha felt it arrive somewhere behind his own ribs, on the inside of the place where he kept the thing that decided to keep existing. He tore the arm off Susanoo himself and threw it, and it came down on the plain 1,100 yards away and made a lake of burning glass that is still there. What are you? Madara said. Late, Naruto said, and closed the distance. I will give you the middle of that fight in the order the survivors agreed on, because the survivors argued about everything else. Madara brought down a meteor. He did it twice. He reached into the sky with the Rinnegan and pulled 2 objects out of it the size of hills and dropped them on the plain. And the first one came down, and Naruto went through it. He came out the far side of a falling mountain with a hole burned through it in a straight line, and the mountain split around him. And the second one he took with hellfire breath, straight up, 60 feet wide at the mouth and 200 at the impact, and the meteor came apart into gravel and burning glass, and the fall of it turned the night into a false orange dawn for 4 countries. There are 11,000 tons of glass beads in the soil of the northern land of lightning, and farmers still turn them up. Naruto put Susanu's chest open with 2 blades, and Madara rebuilt it in 9 seconds, while both of them were still moving. Madara used the wood release he had taken from the first Hokage and put a forest through the battlefield, and the forest reached for him and became a wall of trunks 11 deep. And it was a beautiful technique, and it was the wrong element to bring, and the whole thing was ash across 2 miles inside 4 seconds, and the ash came down on the allied lines like snow. Madara took Naruto's arm off at the shoulder with a Susanoo sword. It grew back in 11 seconds, and the fox's chakra came up red through the gold when it did, and Kurama's voice came out of the boy's throat at the same time as his own, and 80,000 people heard 2 things speaking at once. "You have a beast in you," Madara said from 600 feet up in a war mask. "I've owned that beast. I put it in a woman and drove it through a village." "Then you know his name," Naruto said. "Say it." "Why would I? Say his name, Uchiha." And that is the moment the 9-tailed fox, who had spent 1100 years being called it, decided that he was going to give this boy everything he had ever held back. Hellfire, scorched earth. He pushed it, both palms out, and a dome of fire expanded from a single body in every direction at once, and it went up the plain and over the ridge lines, and it climbed, and there was red in it this time, red all through it, because a fox had opened his hand for the first time in his life. The dome reached 3 miles across. Perfect Susanoo was inside it. Madara Uchiha had time to bring all 4 arms in over the war mask's face. The plane went to glass. Not sandy lumps of it, actual glass, in a circle 3 miles wide, dull orange at the seams, with the stumps of a burned forest standing in it like teeth. 11,000 allied shinobi 400 yards behind Naruto Uzumaki did not receive a single burn, because he had put the whole dome forward. And that is the detail that got him a name in Kumo, that translates roughly as the one who aims. Perfect Susanoo came out of the fire with 2 arms left and its war mask half gone. And Madara Uchiha, standing inside it, decided to stop playing. "Enough," he said, and put his hands together. "You are the last interesting thing in a world I am closing. Sleep, boy. Everyone else is going to." The moon changed. 80,000 people looked up. It was the single most frightening thing anyone in that war ever saw. Worse than the meteors, worse than the fire. A rippled purple eye opening on the face of the moon, 400,000 miles up, and light coming down out of it in a sheet. Infinite Tsukuyomi. The world went to sleep. I want to be honest about this. It worked. It worked on all of them. 80,000 allied shinobi, 5 Kage, every civilian in 11 countries, every child in every village, every man in every field. The light came down and the light went in, and the whole world lay down and started dreaming a dream in which nothing had ever been taken from anyone. And it was a good dream, and that is what makes it the worst technique that has ever existed. It also went into Naruto Uzumaki because it went into everyone. The infinite Tsukuyomi is not genjutsu on the eye. It goes past the eye. It operates below the mind, in the place where a person keeps the things they would trade the world for, and that is why it beats everything, because there is nothing alive that does not have such a place. The light went into Naruto and found the ditch. It was all there. Every board of it, in the evening, in summer, with the smell of Kade's soup coming out of a doorway, and the lamplighters actually coming down the stairs for once. Genzo on the well with 2 good legs and a hammer, complaining about the grain of a stone. Tobei naming people by their walk from 40 feet. 40 faces, all of them alive. All of them turning to look at a boy coming home with 3 fish and a bag of rice. And Aim, 5 years old, sitting in the doorway of the shrine with chalk in her hand, and she looked up at him, and she opened her mouth, and she said his name out loud. Madara Uchiha, 600 feet up in a burning war mask, watched the boy on the glass go still and let out a breath. "There," he said. "It always finds the door." The dream held for 11 seconds. Here is what happened on the inside, and the only reason anyone knows it is that Naruto told it once, in the hall, to 61 people on the anniversary of the ditch, and Mishi wrote it down. He said he stood in that alley and let it be real. He said he sat down on the step next to Amy, and he let her put the chalk in his hand, and he drew a stick figure with yellow hair for about as long as it took to do it. He said Katie came out with a bowl and gave it to him first, the way she always did, every single time. He said he ate the soup. Then he set the bowl down on the step, and he stood up, and he walked down the alley to the door of the burned house that was not burned, and he opened it, and behind it there was no house. Behind it there was a plane of black glass under a coal-colored sky, and a man sitting on the glass with his hands on his knees. Hanzo Hasashi looked up. "They came for us in a dream this time," the old Grandmaster said. "I noticed. It is a good one." Hanzo stood, 400 years of him, and looked back down the alley at 40 living people in the evening light. "In 4 centuries, nobody ever offered me this. Sorcerers, gods, kings, all of them offered me power, and none of them thought to offer me my son at the table." His voice did something. "It is the best offer that has ever been made to either of us. Yes." And Naruto Uzumaki looked back down the alley too. He looked for a while. "They're dead," he said. "Every grave has a name on it, and I remember all of them. And a dream that gives them back to me is just one more man deciding what I'm allowed to have." He turned to the plane. Am drew me standing between her and what was coming. "I'm not going to be a stick figure sitting on a step." "Then we burn it," Hanzo said. "We burn it." The plane caught fire. Understand the direction. The infinite Tsukuyomi had reached down into a man's subconscious to take hold of it. And the subconscious it reached into had a burning plane in the middle of it, 4 centuries old, with a grandmaster sitting on it and 41 people standing behind him. And the Tsukuyomi's own connection to that place became a road that ran both ways. Naruto Uzumaki opened his eyes on a field of glass 3 miles wide. Then he looked up at the moon and put both hands out. Hellfire breath. The column left the ground at an angle you could see from 3 countries. It was 200 feet wide when it cleared the burned tree line, and it went up, and it kept going up past every scale that the word fire has ever been used for, and it hit the rippled purple eye on the face of the moon. The infinite Tsukuyomi came apart from the inside. Every mind in the world came back at once. 80,000 allied shinobi woke up on their faces on a burning plain in the land of lightning. 11 countries worth of civilians woke up in fields and kitchens and mid-sentence. 5 Kaj woke up in a command tent with their hands over their eyes. A woman in a megakure woke up holding a sheet of paper. A blind man in the land of waves woke up on a ferry and started laughing for no reason he could explain. In a valley in the fire country hill country, 31 children who had been dreaming that they still had numbers woke up and found they had names. And on the field, Madara Uchiha stood inside the ruin of perfect Susanoo and looked at the moon with the technique of his entire life running backward out of it. And for the first time in 111 years, he had nothing prepared. Naruto Uzumaki walked toward him across the glass. "You know what you are?" Madara said. He was shouting it, and Madara Uchiha had never shouted. "You are a mistake. You are one thing in 100,000 years that the system did not account for. The world will produce 11 billion more people, and every one of them will be dust and nobody in 80 years, not Hashirama, not the beasts, not the gods in the ground, has ever. There is nothing left of you that the fire wants," Naruto said. "So I will take it myself." He hit perfect Susanoo with everything. The last exchange took under a minute. Susanoo swung, and Naruto went through the blade. Madara pulled another meteor, and Naruto opened a portal above the plane and put it somewhere else. Madara went to the black rods and to the limbo shadows. The invisible bodies nobody in 80 years had ever perceived, and the hellfire found them in the space where they hid because the fire operates on the floor below where hiding is possible. And all 4 of them burned at once, and Madara Uchiha felt 4 of himself die. Then the chain went through perfect Susanoo's chest. "Come here!" 600 feet of chakra armor came down at the pull of 40 feet of iron. That is the image that gets painted. Perfect Susanoo, the greatest defensive construct in the recorded history of the world. Going face first into a plane of glass because something small on the ground pulled it over. The construct came apart in a burst of red glass that fell for 11 seconds. And Madara Uchiha stood on the glass in his own body, 6 feet of him, with the Rinnegan going out in one socket and the burn in his chest spreading through everything he had ever been. And a boy in a black mask walked up to him at a normal pace. "You said you'd take it yourself," Madara said. He got it out through his teeth. "Then take it. I have been dead before. I came back. I will come." "No," Naruto said. "You won't." Then he did the thing he had done to one man in his entire life and had promised himself he would keep for the ones who earned it. He turned his hand over. The air tore. Netherrealm portal. It went up to the height of a house and then past it, and the light that came out was orange and red and moving, and inside it there was a plane of black glass under a cold bed sky with towers on the horizon, and figures on that plane, thousands of them, then tens of thousands, then a number that stopped being countable, and every single one of them turned to face the opening at the same time. Far back on the horizon, something the size of a mountain stood up. 80,000 allied shinobi looked into the Netherrealm from 400 yards away. 11,000 of them have nightmares to this day. There are 9 paintings and none of them get it right either. Madara Uchiha looked into it, and Madara Uchiha, who had planned for death, for resurrection, for the failure of every technique he owned, had made no plan at all for the thing on the other side of that tear. The chain went around his throat. "Wait," Madara said. "Wait, I can give you the... You chose this." Naruto pulled. Madara Uchiha went in feet first with a chain around his neck and one blind eye and his hands open. And the shapes on the plane came forward to meet him. And I will tell you what 80,000 people heard, because they all agree on it. They heard the noise of a very great many voices becoming interested at once. And inside that noise there was one voice, and it was not Madara's. And it was enormous, and it said a word in a language nobody there knew. Then the tear sealed, and the plane went silent. I want to give the silence its space, because it lasted a long time. 3 miles of glass, glowing orange at the seams, with burned stumps standing in it. 2 hills that had been meteors, cooling. A moon overhead with a purple stain fading off its face. 80,000 people lying and kneeling and standing on the edge of a circle they had no words for. And in the middle of it, 400 yards from the nearest living thing, one figure with the flesh crawling back over its skull and a chain coiling up its forearm, one loop at a time. Nobody cheered. That is the part everyone remembers. There was no cheering. 80,000 shinobi from 5 nations stood on the rim of that glass and watched a 17-year-old pull a black mask up over his face and turn around, and not one of them made a sound. And the 5th Kazakage of Sunagakure walked out onto the glass alone to meet him. And the glass was still hot enough to smoke under his sandals, and he did it anyway. Gaara stopped in front of him. "Is it over?" he said. "It's over." "Then say it out loud," Gaara said. "They'll believe it from you. They won't believe it from me for another hour, and there are men behind me bleeding out who need to hear it now." Naruto Uzumaki turned toward 80,000 people and did the only public speaking of his entire life, and it was 11 words long. "The war is finished," he said. "Get your wounded off the field." Then 80,000 people made the sound. 61 people in yellow and black came across the glass at a run, and they broke formation for the first time in 4 days. And the oldest of them got there first, and the youngest of them got there last. And Suzume, who was 13 and had a rope dart with 19 notches in the collar, ran straight into his chest and held on with both fists, and Naruto Uzumaki stood in the middle of a burned plane with a 13-year-old attached to his ribs and put one hand on the back of her head and let her. Michi did a head count out loud, twice, because she always did it twice. 61, she said. 61, and all of them breathing. "Grandmaster, we're 61. "Good," Naruto said. "Get them water and then get them working. There are 11,000 wounded on this field, and about 400 of them are Iwa and Kumo, and they'll be at the back of every line. Start there." That is what the Shirai Ryu did on the last night of the 4th Great Ninja War. They worked the back of the lines. They carried Iwa Jonin and Kumo Chunin and Kiri Swordsman, who had spent the previous 4 days on the wrong side of the same field. And they did it for 19 hours without sleeping. And a great deal of what the world thinks about that clan today was decided in those 19 hours and not in the 3 miles of glass. The Netherrealm did not open again for 4 months, which everyone involved agreed was more polite than expected. The 5-cage summit convened in the Land of Iron in the spring, in a stone hall with a round table and 5 chairs, and there was a 6th chair at that table. And there had been an argument about it that lasted 11 days before anyone sat down. Naruto Uzumaki walked into that hall alone and did not sit in the 6th chair. He stood behind it with his hands at his sides and the chain on his forearm, and A, the 4th Raikage, who was 6'6" and built like a granite quarry, took one look at that and understood he was going to have a bad morning. "Sit down," Tsunade said. "I'll stand. If I sit at this table, I'm the 6th village, and I'm not." "That," said Onoki of Iwa from a cushion, at 89 years old, "is the most useful thing anybody has said in this building in 11 days. Mei Terumi of Kirigakure leaned back and folded her arms and looked openly pleased about something. Gaara said nothing at all, because Gaara had already made up his mind 11 months earlier and had spent the morning being told by his own council that he was wrong. "Then let's have it," said. "Because I've had 11 separate reports on my desk about your people this year, and I want to say the thing out loud that nobody in here wants to say." He put one fist on the table. "You are a private military of 211 people, growing, operating in 4 countries, with intelligence better than mine, funded by nobody I can identify, answering to one man, and that man can open a door to a place that eats souls. You destroyed the strongest Uchiha who ever lived in front of 80,000 witnesses. There is no structure in this world that has a place for you, and things without a place in the structure become wars." He sat back. "So, terms. Register with the village, accept Akage's authority, and take a seat inside a system like everybody else. That's the offer." "No," Naruto said. "That was not a..." "I'm going to tell you how it's going to work," Naruto said. "Then you can each decide what you want to do about it, and I'll leave and nothing will happen to any of you either way." The hall went still. The Shirai Ryu operates under its own code. It's 4 lines long, and it's carved on a wall in a valley in the Fire Country, and any of you may come and read it, unarmed, with escort, whenever you like. He counted it off. "We take no contract against a civilian, and we never will, and any of you who offers one will be told the same thing to his face. We take no contract against a village, including this table's. We accept every surrender that is offered to us, without exception, including from men who have killed our own. And we answer to our grandmaster, and to nobody else. No council, no daimyo, no treaty, no seat at this table. And in exchange," Mei said, "in exchange we handle the things you can't and the things you won't." Naruto's hand stayed at his sides. "There are 11 trafficking routes, running through the borders of 4 of your countries right now. There are men buying children out of orphanages in the land of hot water, and none of you can touch them because they're inside a daimyo's family. There are 3 Akatsuki scale problems building in the ruins of sound as we sit here. You'll get a report from us on every one of them, and if you send someone, we'll stand aside. If you don't send someone, we'll go." He looked around the table. "And this is the part you should write down. We will never become a political instrument. When a Kage in this room asks the Shirai Ryu to solve a rival for him, the answer is no, and the answer will be in writing, and the request will go on our wall next to the code." Onoki laughed out loud. It made him cough. "He's just told us he won't be bought," the old man said. "You realize that's the only thing any of us actually wanted to know." "Iwa accepts," Onoki said. "For the record, and because I am 89, and I would like one thing settled before I die. My great-grandchildren will be alive in 50 years because that boy stood 400 yards in front of 11,000 of my shinobi and aimed a 3-mile technique away from them. He could have not bothered. I have known Kage who would not have bothered." "Suna accepts," Gaara said. "Kiri accepts," Mei said. "And I would like it noted that I asked him 3 questions in this hall and got 3 answers, which is more than I have ever gotten out of this table." "Konoha accepts," said Tsunade Senju, "under protest from my council, which I will handle." That left the Raikage, and A of Kumagakure sat in a stone hall with his fist on a table and did not move for a long time. "I can't," he said at last. "You want honesty, boy. You'll get it. I can't accept a force in this world that I have no leverage on. That's not pride. That's the job. My village was carved out of a mountain by men who trusted a treaty and got a bill instead. He looked up. So tell me why I should believe that in 40 years, when you're an old man with 2,000 people in yellow and black in 6 countries, one of your grandchildren doesn't decide the code has a footnote. Because I'll write it in the ground, Naruto said, and I'll keep writing it. That's a promise. Promises die with the man. Then here's a better answer. He came forward one step and put both hands on the back of the 6th chair. Every single person in my clan was thrown away. Root took 31 of them out of orphanages and cut their names off. 11 of them were grown men who spent 20 years underground being numbers. The rest walked up my road out of mines and roadsides and slave wagons. Not one of them came to me for power. They came because there was nowhere else, and I gave them a name and a rope and a rule. The hall was silent. The Shirai Ryu does not forget, Naruto said. We are built from what was taken from us. That's the whole engine. The day my clan starts taking things from other people is the day it stops being itself. And the people in it, the people Raikage, the ones who remember what it was like to be a number in a corridor, they'll end it themselves before I have to. That's your leverage. It's better than a treaty, and it's the only one I've got. A of Kumogakure looked at him for 11 seconds. I'm not accepting, he said. I'm going to sit in my office and watch you for 10 years. That's fine. And if it holds for 10 years, the Raikage said, I'll come to your valley myself and read your wall, and I'll bring a bottle. He did. 11 years later. He was late by a year, and he brought 2 bottles. And the whole clan came out to watch the Raikage of Kumogakure stand in front of a stone wall in the rain with his hat off, reading 4 lines. Naruto Uzumaki walked out of the land of iron in the spring, alone, with 211 people waiting for him. 11 days travel away, and about halfway home, he came up over a ridge and stopped. Because the air 3 feet to his right had begun to tear, he had 0 part in it. He never did. The portal opened to 8 feet, and then to 12, and then it kept going. And the fire inside it was the color it had been on the monument 4 years earlier, and the voices came out of it the way they had come out of it then. A great many of them agreeing. Grandmaster. Naruto turned to face it. He did not reach for the chain. You gave us Danzo Shimura, the Netherrealm said. You gave us Sasori of the Red Sand and 11 others whose names we had written down and given up on. You gave us Madara Uchiha, and it took 11,000 of us to hold him at the gate, and the mountain came down off the horizon to look at him. The fire and the tear moved. The bargain is 4 months overdue. You are our champion. We have waited 4 years, and the plane wants you home. You'll wait longer. That is what you said on the monument. It's what I'll say every time you ask like that, Naruto said. The fire changed. There was something in it that had never been there before, which was hesitation. Then say it another way, the Netherrealm said. And Naruto Uzumaki, 17 years old, standing on a ridge in the land of iron with the wind coming down off the snow, negotiated with hell. Here are the terms, he said. I'm the reincarnation of Hanzo Hasashi, and I'm not pretending otherwise. You want a champion, and I've been yours since I was 7 years old in a burning house, and I've never once refused a call that mattered. I opened your door 41 times before I was 13, and I've opened it 11 more since, and every man I've put through it belonged there. The chain rattled once on his forearm. So you'll get me. That part isn't in question, and it never was. But I have a clan now. The clan is a body of mortals. It will end. Then you can have me when it doesn't need me. His voice went lower. 211 people. 31 of them were children with numbers on their wrists 3 years ago, and they still wake up in the night. There are 11 more walking up my road this month. In 40 years, there'll be 1,000 of them in 6 countries, and they'll be teaching each other the first form without me in the room. And on the day I look at that and know it stands up on its own, that's the day I'll walk through your door on my own feet, and I'll close it behind me. The fire and the tear did not answer. Those are the terms, Naruto said. The clan comes first. You can accept that, or you can wait another lifetime and get somebody with less patience than me and worse manners. I'd take the deal. You've seen what I do with the chain when the answer is no. The Netherrealm considered this. I want to be honest about how long it took, because it is the only recorded instance of anything like it. Naruto Uzumaki stood on a ridge in the land of iron for 11 minutes with a tear in the world burning next to him, and the shapes in it came up close to the opening, and behind the shapes, far out on a plain of black glass, something the size of a mountain sat down. Then the portal closed. It closed without an answer, and it did not open again for a very long time, and the Shirai Ryu tell that story as a victory, and I think they're right, because in 4 centuries of dealing with that place, nobody had ever gotten it to think about anything. Here is where I leave them. Late summer, in a valley in the fire country hill country, on a training ground with the river on one side and a cliff face on the north where the wind comes down cold in the mornings. There is a wall at the top of the ground with 4 lines carved into it, and a copy of a memorial scroll hung beside it in a case, 41 names in a column. Under that, at the height of a small child's reach, there are chalk drawings, and every one of them has a tall figure with yellow hair standing between the small figures and whatever is coming. And there is a woman of 9 years old with chalk on her fingers who is still adding to them and who has never spoken a word in her life and does not intend to start. 211 people stand on that ground in yellow and black with rope darts at their belts. They stand in 11 rows, and the rows are not even because the youngest is 5 and the oldest is a 54-year-old woman who walked up the road out of the hot water mines and refused to leave until somebody handed her a rope. Genzo is at the end of the first row with a collarbone that clicks in cold weather. Mishi is beside him with a limp she will have forever. Tobe is at the back where he can hear everything. Suzume has 31 notches in her collar and is teaching the small ones the first form on Tuesdays. And she is terrible at it, and she will get better. 12 is not called 12 anymore. He took his name in a hospital corridor in Konoha, 11 months after Pain's invasion, after the 11th person he pulled out of the tenement came looking for him to say thank you, and the name he took was Sazo, off the 4th to last line of the memorial scroll, because Naruto had told them Sazo had been a laborer who carried water for the whole alley for 9 years and never once asked anybody for anything. And 19 is still 19. She is 14 now. She has waited longer than anyone in the clan's history, and the running joke among the older ones is that she is holding out for a good one, and the joke has become a kind of respect. Naruto Uzumaki stands in front of them. He is 17 years old. His hair is short now, and there is a scar under his collarbone that he has had since he was 7 and that never faded, because some things don't. His mask is up over his nose and mouth. The chain is coiled at his right forearm. His face, above the black cloth, is 17 and looks about 40, and it will look about 40 for the rest of his life, and nobody in this valley finds that strange because they have never known him any other way. Before we start, he says 19 steps forward out of the 4th row. She does it without being called, which is a thing that has never happened on this ground, and 210 people go absolutely still, and Mishi puts a hand over her own mouth. Grandmaster, 19 says, I've got one. Say it. She stands in front of 211 people and the wall with the 41 names on it, and her hands are shaking and her voice is level. Kade, she says, the valley does not make a sound. The river keeps going, and the wind comes down off the north cliff, and up on the wall a scroll hangs in a case with 41 names in a column. And the second one from the top is a woman who was 81 years old and had 1 good hand and 3 teeth and a kettle she carried through 2 wars, and who crawled across a floor of burning straw toward a doorway because a 7-year-old boy was somewhere out in the alley. Naruto Uzumaki looks at a 14-year-old girl for a long moment. She boiled water and put in whatever the market threw out and called it soup, he says, and she gave me the first bowl every single time. Every time. I know, 19 says. You told us. I've been waiting 11 months to be worth it. You were worth it in the hospital corridor with Sazo, and you've been worth it every day since. His voice has gone lower, which is what it does. Then keep it clean, Kade. Yes, Grandmaster. She steps back into the fourth row, and the girl beside her grabs her arm with both hands, and somewhere in the ninth row, somebody starts crying and gets an elbow for it. Naruto turns and looks at all of them. Some of you have been here 4 years, he says. Some of you walked up the road this month and you're standing at the back, wondering what you signed. So here it is once, plainly, and then we work. The chain rattles on his forearm. Every one of you was thrown away. Numbers on your wrists, or a mine, or a wagon, or a roadside, or a village that looked past you until it forgot you were there. The world had a use for you, and when the use ran out, it put you down and went on with its afternoon. He walks the front of the line the way he has walked it 1,000 times. I know how that goes. 40 people down at the bottom of Konoha, where the runoff went shared what they had with me for 11 months, and then died in 1 hour because a man in an office decided their loyalty was an unaudited resource. I was 7. I went down into the fire after them, and something down there asked me whether I wanted to burn away into nothing or become the fire. 211 people know the answer. They say it back at him without being asked, in one voice, and the sound of it goes up the valley and off the north cliff and comes back. Give me the fire. That's right. Naruto stops in the middle of the ground. So understand what we are. The Shirairyu does not forget. There are 41 names on that wall, and there will be more. And every one of them gets said out loud once a year in this yard. And every one of you will learn all of them. And when somebody tells you the dead don't matter, you'll know they've never lost anybody worth remembering. He looks up the rows to the back, where the newest ones are standing. Nobody is coming to give us anything. 5 villages know our name now, and 4 of them signed nothing, and the 5th one signed under protest. The world will send men up that road as long as this clan exists, for the fire, for the archive, for the children, for reasons they'll invent on the way. His hands settle. When they come, we hold. When they kneel, they live. When they run, we let them go if they've got honor, and we take them off the board if they don't. That's the whole code, and it fits on a wall because it was never complicated. The wind comes down off the cliff and moves through 211 yellow sleeves at once. The debt is paid, Naruto Uzumaki says. Everyone who took my clan from me is in the ground or in the fire, and I put most of them there personally. And there is nothing left in this world I have to prove to anybody in it. His voice goes lower, and it carries anyway, the way it always has. So from here, we're not paying anything. From here, we build. And in 40 years, there'll be 1,000 of you in 6 countries, and every one of them will know who Kade was, and Jinzo and Tobe, and a 5-year-old girl who drew with stolen chalk. And the world will know their names whether it wants to or not. He takes one step back. 211 rope darts come up off 211 belts at the same time, and the sound of it is a single sound. First form, he says. Begin.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end. This story hit hard from the first page to the last, and if it kept you locked in the whole time, drop a like and hit subscribe so you never miss the next one. More wild what-if tales are already on the way. See you in the next one.